What's going on, War Report family? You got Ike Jones. We are here. It's Selection Sunday. Let's see where the Auburn Tigers land.
The Auburn Express. You are now listening to the War Report Longtown Podcast. With your boy Ike Jones.
Indeed, here live, watch party style. I got my guy Dustin Smith from Up Tempo in here, man. We are going to take you guys right up until Auburn's name is called. Then we're going to react to it. It better not be anything ridiculous, because I promise you I'm going to say something that will get us kicked off of YouTube if we're not on that 1 seed line as the number 1 overall seed, man, because it's ridiculous. Anyway, Dustin, how you feeling today, man?
K Blue just made me feel a lot better. K Blue with the grand slam to put our Auburn Tigers up 7-6 now, bottom of the 8th versus Vanderbilt. If we can hang on and win this SEC opening series, I'll be real good, man. If we get that number 1 overall seed, I'll be real good. So we're doing good so far, man.
Softball took the L this weekend. They got swept this weekend, but
yeah.
Auburn baseball trying to close out a series here against Vanderbilt. Got game 1, blew game 2, and are coming back to take the lead in game 3. Hopefully they can close the deal here. So we will see what happens. Man, already early. We talked about this before when we were on the weekend tailgate, whether or not I was going to make this members only, and I'm already feeling the regret of not doing that because people are in here trolling early, bro. I'm just like, I don't want to have to make it where you guys are only going to be members to be able to comment here. But listen, I want everybody's opinions, but like, I want the fan base to chill for a minute, bro. Like, take a breath. It's okay. Auburn lost 5 games this year, and we're acting as if they've lost 15. So it is what it is. Also joining us live, you give me a thumbs up if you're ready off stream for whenever you guys are. We got our girl Brandy Mack in the place to be. B Mac, good to go. Appreciate you jumping in. How you feeling today, Brandy?
What's up? Feeling good. My voice is a little
you warned me about the voice. I didn't know it's going to be like that. What did you do? I literally just saw you yesterday. What is this?
I know. Just was cheering hard for Florida yesterday, I guess. Yeah. Yeah. So it's a little rough. So bear with me.
Understood. You ready off over there? Alex. All right. I got Alex Miller also joining us live. How you feeling today, man?
Oh, man, we're doing great. Doing great. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, we hear you just fine.
All right, I still got to get my let me get my mic hooked up, my headphones in, but yeah, doing fantastic. As you know, just got back from Nashville. Just like, well, not as back from Nashville as Brandy because she lives there, but SEC tournament never disappoints.
Yeah, the SEC tournament it was everything that you expected it to be. Top 4 seeds made it to the last 4 there in the tournament. And honestly, I think if I'm using the unbiased nature of this, I think the best 2 teams made it to the championship day. Like the teams that were playing the best at the end of the season. I won't say the best 2 teams, but the teams that were playing. Florida, I've said this many times, I think is one of the best teams, if not the best team in the country. And Tennessee was just playing really well. And the way that they play defense, it equips them to be there. So I'm not surprised that those are the 2 that made it. I had hopes that Auburn could make it happen and pull some magic together. And they did well to close the distance on Tennessee late in that game, just didn't have enough to finish it. But we are on to, as Bruce Pearl says, can't wait. Can't wait to see who they get. We are on to the next and trying to see what happens here in the NCAA tournament. Is anybody in this group of 4 here have any thoughts that they're going to get this wrong and move Auburn off of the number 1 overall seed? You do, Alex? You feel like they're going to get this wrong? What are your thoughts there?
All right, had to clear my throat and composure. Yeah, it's just real convenient where yesterday going in prior, you see Lenardi say, oh, they got it locked in. All the talking heads are, oh, it's locked in. And then all of a sudden you start to see this shift kind of come this morning at the 11th hour. Well, maybe not. They may not get the number all. Where's Duke going to end up going? And there seems to be a lot of new conversation amongst the talking heads that has not been there for days and weeks prior. So it just seems like there's enough people that probably have enough inside information that know some of the athletic directors on these selection committees that maybe they're leaking some stuff out there and there's getting some chatter that maybe what we think should be a very black and white scenario is being influenced by the recency bias of the fact that Auburn just happened to lose these games. I think you said on your live show earlier, I was trying to watch that to make sure I, didn't repeat, or in this case, did bring up very valid talking points to where if these losses had happened spread throughout the season, no one would be thinking twice about it. It's just the fact they happen right now, which for whatever reason rules always seem to apply to Auburn that don't apply to other teams. Like, for example, no one talked about this when Alabama got 100 piece by Florida twice in 10 days to end the season last year. No one was saying their tires are deflating, but yet when it's Auburn playing very close games against good teams, all of a sudden it's just doubt, clouds everywhere. So just seems to be what it is. I'm not holding my breath that this is going to favor Auburn because it seems like these scenarios that are just outside of their control never do.
Anybody else feeling like they're going to screw Auburn? I won't say screw. That's a little harsh to say screw, but I think that Auburn has done enough. The body of work through this season, it shouldn't be in question, but for some reason it is in question. Is anybody else feeling like, yeah, they might actually do this?
No, I think we're going to be the number 1 overall seed because the committee starts meeting midweek and they slate 1 through 7, 1 through 8. So seed lines 1 and seed lines 2 midweek. And there's really not much that happens today, yesterday, maybe even a little bit on Friday too. That's going to impact the 1 and 2 lines. So there's just there's so many caveats and rules that they have to follow. And with there being so many SEC teams in, I don't think that there would be near enough time from yesterday to today for them to reslate Auburn as not number 1 overall, given the number of SEC teams in and the teams that have played each other in the non-conference slate too. So I think Auburn's going to be number 1 overall. I think they slated that days ago.
Listen, if Auburn goes in last year as a 5 seed, wins the whole darn tournament, and doesn't move a single line, not a higher 5 seed, none of that, then you winning the toughest SEC conference in the history of the SEC and one of the best conferences in the history of college basketball. Not the best. I think there's an argument that some of these other ones dogs happen. It's all good.
Brandy.
There's an argument that there have been like a Big East or something like that that's been better than this collection of SEC teams. But there's a possibility that there's 12, maybe 13 SEC teams that gets into this tournament. And Auburn won that conference with 2 games left and did not lose a single game in the non-con, playing against teams that will likely be in the Final Four, at least in the Sweet 16. It just doesn't make any sense to me. Like, I get the recency of what they're playing like right now, but I think that's college football logic, not college basketball logic. College basketball should take the entirety of the body of work, and what you've done over the course of the whole season should matter. And Auburn did enough to be the number 1 overall seed, and it shouldn't be particularly close when you look at quad 1 wins, when you look at strength of schedule, when you factor in all of the things that this committee says matters. It shouldn't be particularly close. Thoughts on that, Dustin?
Yeah, 1 strike away from closing this series out with Vanderbilt, kind of locked in with that. But
it's all good, man, because I definitely want those updates as well, because I was kind of mad at yesterday's outcome when they lost to Vanderbilt. And I was very upset that they were down 6-3 just a minute ago. But Grand Slam brings Auburn back up there to the top.
Yeah,
so
we're 1 strike away from closing it out. This would be big, be a big comeback win.
Anybody on? What's this whole situation with? Give me the
top of the 9th, Auburn's up 7-6. You got 2 outs, 2 count.
Nobody on base?
No, nobody on base.
All right.
But yeah, man, listen, resume, right? Like, if you look at the overall resume, it's got to be Auburn. If they bump Auburn down to 2, it would be silly, but to me, it wouldn't make I'm not going to be somebody that's going to be really upset about it. You still got to go win the games and obviously make your free throws, protect the basketball, and all those kind of things. But yeah, if you look at like you said, it feels like more of a college football logic how the committee did FSU a couple of years ago. Well, you lost your quarterback, so you're not going to play good moving forward type thing.
Right.
No, with basketball, man, and just with what we put together before the SEC. And then you take into account what the SEC was and winning that regular season title. Yeah, played a close game versus Tennessee yesterday. We beat them like we beat them the first time. So if that would have been reversed, then I would have picked Auburn to beat Tennessee, right? Like that's a tough team. It's tough to beat them twice. So I don't these last couple of games, man. At A&M, it is what it is. Bama beats you in overtime on the buzzer. I think Auburn's fine. I think Auburn should be the number 1 overall seed. I don't think it should even really be that close. And I don't think they're going to mess it up. But if they do, let them do it. It'll give Bruce something else to get the boys motivated. Auburn finished it off, strikeout, win the series, take 2 or 3 from Vanderbilt.
Love
it. Go, boys.
Golly, man, because that again, yesterday's outcome was already bad enough. I didn't want to see baseball crumble there versus Vanderbilt, which is, listen, to be fair, not as good a Vanderbilt team as they have been historically. So Auburn needed that to make sure that they're not, and we're talking about baseball here, to make sure that they're not starting off the season in the SEC in the deficit like that. But get a series win, love it. Great comment here. I want to go ahead and highlight this. Anthony Grant says, how about Trey Donaldson winning back-to-back conference championships? Shout out to Tournament Trey. Again, coming up big for his new team now, which is the Michigan Wolverines. Yesterday, getting the buzzer beater, full court, Tyus Edney style, driving it down there with the left-hand lay finish to get Michigan across the finish line to get them to the tournament championship game. And then late game today, hitting some clutch free throws to get them to a 2-possession lead there at the end. Went perfect from the free throw line, in fact, in that game for Michigan today versus Wisconsin to get them across the finish line. Conference tournament championship, back-to-back seasons for Trey Donaldson, SEC and Big Ten. Shout out to him for sure. All right. The selection show is going to be on CBS today. Man, can we just take CBS. A minute? Can we just take a minute and say how different it's going to be today for the selection show? How many years in a row was it that we would have this will be the first time in how many years that you're not going to have him on the show? I don't even know the answer to that. 20-something year? I don't even know. Does anybody know how long he's been doing this show? And now he's.
Since I've been watching college basketball, he's
20 plus years, says Stephen Neely. So it's definitely going to be a different vibe. And I don't even who's going to be hosting this today.
I don't know, honestly. I wonder if they're going to start off with a tribute to him too.
They should. If they don't, I think that's a fail.
Yeah, I imagine they will. So that'll be really nice to see.
But yeah, so today on CBS, for those that want to know, it's going to be starting here in just about 2 minutes, the scheduled time for the March Madness Selection Sunday show. We should see Auburn's name called fairly quickly here, right? So, they're not gonna prolong the number 1 overall seed situation here. Riley Mobley says that Katie Johnson's squad came up just short. For those that don't know, Katie Johnson and George Mason were in the championship game. Listen, man, these former Auburn players are going out there and making impact in their new teams. That Michigan team is like full of transfers. Like nobody came back for Michigan, and they were able to put Danny Wolf. Did Yale win their tournament?
Yes.
Okay, so Danny Wolf is another guy who got back-to-back tournament championships on 2 separate teams. He was on Yale last year, on Michigan this year. So back-to-back years for Danny Wolf getting conference tournament championship. They went and got championship pedigree guys and brought them in to rejuvenate a Michigan team that looked awful in the Big Ten last year, but was able to come back and win their tournament championship this year. So shout out to them.
Shout out KT Harrell, who's the Dobo for Dusty May at Michigan. He was at FAU too and followed him there. So
host today is Adam Zucker. Okay, so Greg Gumbel, of course, the longtime host of the Selection Sunday show, of course, passed recently in last year and will not be there. Of course, I mean, unless he's gonna visit as a ghost of some sort. But yeah, so Greg Zucker is gonna be the guy. So we are about to kick this thing off. Alex thinking maybe selection committee screws Auburn. Brandy and Dustin in the other camp there. I'm in the camp they better not. Like, I can see it happening just because, of course, they would do that to Auburn, but like, it just doesn't. I can't see the logic, right? Like, they're gonna have to spend a few minutes explaining this to me if they do this. Like, I'm like, what are we doing here? But yeah, once again, for those that didn't see, King Richard says here, shout out to Auburn baseball winning this series against Vandy. Auburn in the 8th inning gets a grand slam when they were down 6-3 to take the lead, and then close the door in the 9th inning with some great relief pitching there at the end. The starter got banged up. I say banged up. It wasn't injured. Like, he got
knocked around a little bit.
Yeah, he got knocked around quite a bit in the early going of that game, and Auburn's bats just were not able to get anything done. Then 8th inning, bases loaded, and you get the heroics there in the 8th inning for them to get the series. So congrats to them. If there are any non-Auburn fans in here, then welcome. If you are in here and you have not shared this live video, then you, first and foremost, you're absolutely wrong. Like, that's free, and that should be like the cost of your admission, is to share the live with somebody to let them know that we're in here doing this. And if you haven't liked the video, then you're also wrong. So you are wrong in 2 ways if you've done neither of those. If you've only done one of those 2, then shame on you, and make both of those things happen. There are about 180 people in here. So if I go check my YouTube analytics right now, I should see at least 160 likes, at least 160 likes.
They're currently doing a tribute right now to Greg, and they did say over 25 years.
25 years is amazing, and did it in a great way. Like, nobody of all the people who cover sports, I don't know that anybody has a negative thing to say about Greg Gumbel. So, like, 25 years and everybody likes you, you're doing something right. Like, I don't know how you managed to be that guy. Because I've only been doing this for 5 years, and I got plenty of people who dislike me. So, and I am nowhere near the scale of people that Greg Gumbel reached. So, I don't know how he did it, but that is a man that lived life the right way. So, all right. So again, show is live right now out there on CBS if you guys want to watch along with us. But we will be reacting as things happen here. Hoping to see some wonderful things. Appreciate Stephen Finch for gifting 5 War Report memberships. For those of you that don't know, we here at the War Report do quite a bit of things behind the paywall. So if you are a part of the Green Name Gang, we have a wonderful assortment of things available to you. So hopefully you guys will join, and 5 people get to have that for a month for free. Appreciate you so much for that. All right, they're going to commercial here, right, before they start this, of course, because they have to drag this out as much as possible. So we will see. Uh-oh, no, they're not. They're going straight to it. Auburn, number 1 overall seed. There we go.
Let's go.
Out the gates.
Let's go.
Oh,
let's make it happen right here. The Auburn Tigers, the number 1 overall seed. So, again, no drama here. We get to have it happen.
Well, I was wrong. My bad.
And
but I'm happy to be wrong. Best time to be wrong.
Alabama State or St. Francis, which is what was expected there. Let's talk about the 2 teams that could potentially play Auburn here. St. Francis or Alabama State. I think that it's a pretty much a go that Alabama State would win that game. Any thoughts on that? You guys know anything about Alabama State or St. Francis?
I've never watched either one of these teams play 1 minute of basketball.
The only thing I looked at was analytics on the 2 teams, and I was just like, this looks like this should be an Alabama State win. 2 teams from the state of Alabama right there. Great.
Here's some quick stats on both of those teams. So St. Francis is ranked 297 in the net. They're 8-8 in their conference, 16-17 overall, 0-5 across quad 1 and 2, 13-12 across quads 3 and 4, highest net rank win came against Central Connecticut State at 168. Riley Parker is their leading scorer. Alabama State,
Wait a minute,
274 net
Paul.
ranking.
Speaking of Trey Johnson in Michigan, they are in the 5 seed in this bracket right now. Awesome, but continue. I'm sorry.
You mean Trey Donaldson?
Trey Donaldson. I'm sorry. I don't know what I just said. Yeah, but go ahead.
You
Brandy,
said Johnson, but another good player.
Alabama State's 19-15 overall, 12-6 in conference, 274 net ranking, 0-6 across quad 1 and 2. Losses to Cincinnati, SMU, Missouri, UNLV, LSU, and Akron. 18-9 across quads 3 and 4. Highest net ranking win came against Omaha, which is actually another tournament team, at 160 for their net ranking. So a little bit of stats about both of those, whoever we end up matching up against.
Yikes! Texas A&M.
Oh man,
and
UC
Yale.
San Diego.
Oh yeah,
Michigan
you're a
has
little
to play
ahead.
UC San Diego. Texas A&M plays Yale.
UC San Diego is a really, really fun mid-major. That's a good team.
Oh, they put Yale and Auburn. That's incredible.
Yeah.
I don't think Yale will make it that far, but man, Yale.
I don't
give me
know.
Yale,
They're
Auburn
kind
in
of
the
good
Elite
again
Eight.
this year.
I don't like having A&M in our bracket, though, in our region, though. I don't like it. Golly. Ooh,
But
that's
hey,
a tough draw.
Hear me out though. A&M in Atlanta.
A&M just that the way that A&M plays. I said this before we played A&M in A&M. The way that A&M defends just is a terrible matchup for the way that Auburn plays offense. And the things that Auburn is not good at, Texas A&M is immaculate at. And so it's a bad matchup. Like now, hopefully they don't shoot as well as they did if Auburn plays them, because I think that was a big differentiator. They don't normally shoot as well as they did in that Auburn game, but like the rebounding situation is, that's what A&M does best, and that's where Auburn's Achilles heel is. So I don't know.
That would have been a Sweet 16 matchup. I'm sorry, I misquoted that. I was looking at the.
It's a tough draw if Louisville wins that game against Creighton, and we have to play Louisville right next door to them.
Just looking at that would be tough.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
Michigan. Personally, I think Michigan would be a matchup that would look better. I've watched Michigan a little bit this year, and also too, a lot of these guys played against Trey, very similar to what they said against Aiden. They're going to know his tendencies.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, Trey's been doing really well, and there's still that little soft spot of me with the Pegues evaluation not panning out, where you're just like, man, if Trey had stayed this year, because every year, his freshman, sophomore, now junior, he's one of those guys. He's gotten better every single year. Like Trey didn't just hit his ceiling. So there's, I'm happy for him. Trey left to good terms. He was good when he was here. So no ill feelings, but you do kind of wonder. But yeah, I mean, I think out of that batch there, you kind of hope that Michigan gets one over A&M. Now, obviously, you said it early in your live show. I don't think A&M is going to shoot how they did from deep. Because I was talking to Andrew Stefaniak, he does Locked On Aggies. He's on your show, preview show.
Yeah.
I guess it was last week. And so I'm texting Andrew, and he's going, A&M sucks from 3. They're going to shoot bricks. Like this team, Auburn's going to kill them. Like they're just awful shooting team, bad offense. And then I'm texting him just 3, and I'm just dogging him so hard. I'm like, Andrew, I'm screaming at Syriac. I thought you said this team can't shoot. I thought you said they suck. It's like, I swear to God, they can't. I don't know what's going on.
Statistically, they can't. Yeah, they're one of the worst 3-point shooting teams in the league. But
he's texting me all
that
caps. Check the analytics. They don't do this. So I don't think it happens all
Michigan
at once.
State's
I don't think that happens. In Atlanta, that's going to be an Auburn home game. You're not going to see a ton of Aggie fans.
We have to get through the 8. We have to get through the 8-9 seed that we play first. That's a tough draw. Louisville by bracket matrix all week was slated as a 5 seed, and they're an 8. That's a really tough draw, and it's played in Lexington.
In Lexington, that's going to be that's going to be tough too. I mean, Louisville.
Whoever wins that Louisville Creighton game, because Kalkbrenner would, in my opinion, give Janai a little bit of trouble inside. So that's a little bit of a concern there, too.
Well, I watched Louisville last night against Duke. I don't know if anybody else watched that game.
I did not, yeah.
I don't know. Louisville just – I've seen a few of their games this year. I don't know if they're going to have it. Now, Brandy, you might know more about the individual matchups that they could have, and I think you kind of hit the nail on the head there. The key to any team is – how are their bigs going to match up against Janai? That's what all this is going to boil down to.
Yeah, that's what she was just saying. She thinks that one of them can have what was the name that you threw out there, Brandy? for Louisville?
Kalkbrenner for Louisville.
Yeah.
I don't know who Louisville's big is. They had some injuries this year. I don't think their big got injured, but that's not going to be I think we'll have a nice matchup inside for Louisville. I'd be more worried about Creighton from like an interior perspective. I don't think Louisville is like that great of a rebounding team, which bodes well for us. Need to figure out a way to stop Chucky Hepburn if we end up playing Louisville. I would say their offense and their guards are more of a concern. And also just having a team that is very underseeded.
Let me throw
playing in
some
their
shade at
hometown, basically.
Let me throw some shade at Louisville here to show how bad the ACC is. The fact that is a 27-win team and they're an 8 seed. Just want to get them while I can.
Well, I'm going to take a look. So you guys, I use Bartorvik for a lot of my analytic stuff. I'm looking at Creighton right now. And according to Bartorvik, Creighton is number 33. They are the 32nd in adjusted efficiency on offense, 42nd on defense. So top 50 on offense and defense, according to Bartorvik. They turn the ball over, though, a lot. They have a high turnover percentage. They are not a great offensive rebounding team. They don't get to the free throw line a heavy amount. And they are just an okay three-point shooting team, 33.9%. Where they feast is on the interior, like Brandy was saying. They've got a good big there. So they get 60.5% of their points are coming from the interior there. They shoot a 60.5% rate on the interior from 2. So I think that's a decent matchup. They did play, Texas A&M earlier in the season, lost that game 77-73. And they played Alabama earlier in the season, lost that game 83-75.
You talking about Creighton?
Yes.
Okay.
So
and they're 37th on KenPom too.
So yeah, they're top 40 team on KenPom, top 40 team on Bartorvik. So decent squad there, but I don't like from a matchup perspective, what I'm looking at here doesn't scare me in the places where I feel like Auburn is deficient, right? Like they're not a dynamic offensive rebounding team, and they're not a team that gets to the free throw line a lot. So I think that's a decent matchup, right? Like, though you can probably, to the point that you make, Brandy, have someone who can shut Janai down. I think overall offensively, this is a team that Auburn may be able to overwhelm. So I don't hate that matchup. Looking at their minute distribution, they seem to play 1, 2, 3, 4. Really, I mean, they don't go deep into the bench either. They have some guys that contribute off the bench, but not a heavy contribution there in minutes distribution. So, but they'll go about 8 deep, really, and play guys, but just not heavy minutes on the bench.
I got a few things here on Louisville. Can I
go
run
ahead
with this?
Talk.
So since Louisville, 23rd in the net, they are also happen to be 23 in KenPom. Shockingly high for an 8 seed, but that is the Auburn way. They're going to get us some way. They're actually higher than Michigan in KenPom, so just let that be said for what it is. Now, how they have fared against quad 1 games, not great. They're 4-6 in quad 1. Their best quad 1 win would probably be against Clemson. Actually, I guess they played Clemson twice, so they beat them twice, home and then neutral. Of course, they've lost to Duke twice. From SEC standpoint, though, they lost to Tennessee at home, 55-77. They lost to Oklahoma on a neutral court, 64-69, and they lost to Ole Miss at home, 63-86. So Ole Miss just absolutely bulldozed this team, and they lost to Kentucky, 85-93. So most of this Louisville team's losses have come, their quad 1 losses have come to SEC teams. I guess losses in general, because it was Duke and Georgia Tech, which Georgia Tech was a kind of lower quad 2 loss, were the only teams in the ACC that beat them, which I think just goes to show kind of similar story to Duke. This is not a very battle-tested team. And even when they have played against kind of middle-of-the-road SEC teams, they just lose for the most part. They got smoked pretty bad. even when they played at home. Like I said, they played Ole Miss at home and still got just absolutely annihilated that game. So, I know transitive property and it's different times of the year. A lot of these factors don't always correlate. But if you're just looking at it from a 100-foot view from the boxing matches they faced against the teams they played, not looking super great. Now, as far as Ken Palm goes, Louisville is going to be fairly balanced with a little bit more adjusted defense. Is going to be 21st and offense going to be 29th. So there's not really one glaring factor there that's going to really stand out. I think it's going to be kind of similar. They're going to be kind of a similar build to Auburn, but probably lesser so. Now, as far as the personnel that they have on the court, that might be more of Brandy's wheelhouse. So that's kind of the record and just analytics debriefing of Louisville.
I feel you. So, I mean, again, I don't think that this is a bad draw for Auburn. There are some sneaky teams in this bracket. Watching a couple of these other brackets, I thought that Arizona was going to be in our region. And so I'm surprised that they made it to I won't say fail, but they are not that they're not going to be in the 4 in our region. So I actually don't. Michigan State is, though. They're the 2. Michigan State's the 2 in our region, which is they're tough.
Yeah, I'm curious how the other 8 nines are going to look.
They in Duke's region, they have as their 8 9. I believe it was Baylor and I'll look at Vanderbilt, a 10 seed. I believe it was Baylor and Mississippi State as their 8 9.
Bama is the 2 seed in this Duke bracket here in the East region.
Got to type on my
against
dog.
Robert Morris. Appreciate the big super chat here from Jazzy. We're ready,
Shout
y'all.
out Jazzy
Let's
Joe.
go. Shout out to Jazzy Joe. Jazzy's our guy. We will definitely see. Jazzy's already let it be known he's going to be in Lexington, so we will definitely be up there with you, Jazzy, in a couple of days. We talked about this earlier. Memes. Did we ever find out like what? I wasn't paying attention. What night is Auburn playing?
Thursday and Saturday. Oh, Thursday if we win, then Saturday.
That's
Okay.
Brandy's our TV guy correspondent. Mississippi State's also an 8 seed, and then Baylor's the 9 seed. So that kind of shows you what kind of level of competition. Do we know what time and what channel they're going to be playing yet on Thursday yet, Brandy, or is that still up in the air?
Yeah, I think it's posted out there somewhere.
Well, we gotta start digging. I'm scrolling through Twitter as we speak, trying to find the most up to date stuff here. So Duke has a relatively
easy top region.
So Alabama's going to be playing in the East. So that'll be in Newark, right? So that's a tough spot for them, and they'll start in Cleveland, and then it looks like they'll be playing St. Mary. If everything goes chalk, St. Mary's, Alabama will be a very interesting game.
Yeah, St. Mary's is a 7 seed. Wow. I think they're a little underseeded. I thought they would get a 5 or a 6 seed. St. Mary's, Saxon inside, their big man, he's really good. St. Mary's plays like a super slow pace, really strong defensive team, knows how to control possessions. And similar to Texas A&M or even a Bama or a Florida, they're really, really good offensive rebounding team. So assuming they end up playing Bama, because I do think St. Mary's is going to beat Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt just doesn't have the size to match them inside, and I don't know if they're going to be able to hang with them. I think that's going to be an intriguing second round matchup between Bama and St. Mary's.
Yes. So, but we don't know the time yet, right? The schedule
of the games. I can look it up. Hold on.
Yeah. Try to find what time these games are going to be, because that can always play. At least the Thursday games, because that can always play an interesting factor of like with people traveling and things like that, especially because Lexington is not as far as Spokane was from someone that had to go to Spokane, which was awful. It's a 6-hour drive from Birmingham, so even closer for Huntsville. So a lot of folks in the Auburn fan base could day trip that game 1. And if they don't want to do it day 1, if they're playing Saturday, you should have a much more favorable matchup for a day trip, day 2, than, of course, going to Atlanta. So this has the potential to not only be historic, being Auburn's first number 1 overall seed ever, but one where you actually have a very favorable matchup to where all of these weekends are within driving distance. And then especially with Atlanta being much easier from even Auburn and just most of the larger cities in Alabama. So that does favor well. It's just, do we have the times? Are we still digging the times?
I don't know if
I
they've been announced
can't
yet,
find the
so.
times, so they may not have. Somebody posted a TV schedule though, like a couple weeks ago.
But it was confirmed they're playing on Thursday, though. That was stated on the.
Yes. Yeah, that's.
Yeah, it says it right there. Yeah, it says Thursday. Thursday in Lexington.
Jazzy Joe with the super chat says memes were hiding the microwave this time. That's an inside joke that Jazzy and
Can we tell?
Alex
Can we tell
will
the
get.
story? I mean, you've said it on here
listen.
before.
I don't know. I mean, I don't. If you want to, I wasn't there, so I don't even have this story to tell.
So yeah. So, we go to Spokane last year. We're staying with Jazzy in the Airbnb. We got myself and Mike G up in there, and Mike has some fries, and I'm personally like, microwave fries are diabolical. It never works. Mike throws those things in the microwave, like in the little boat it comes in with the paper. And like, I don't know if he thought he was hitting 30 seconds, but he hit like 30 minutes. And Mike going full ADD mode, just like disappears, grabbing stuff out of the car. You know, it was a good, nice, quiet microwave. So I don't think any of us are really noticing it. Things just, and then, we walking through this. It was like, is there smoke? And there is smoke billowing from the microwave, and Mike G, for an unknown number of minutes, has legitimately nuked these French fries, and there's a fire and smoke coming out of the microwave.
Wow.
We were able to save it. The Airbnb smelled like smoke for the rest of the weekend. So
yeah, I'm about to say that probably was an awful smell to have.
So yeah, keep Mike G away from microwaves is the moral of the story.
You have to babysit Mike when you're out there at the Airbnb, apparently.
Yeah, you gotta watch him.
All right. I mean, overall, okay, Houston just got announced here as they're gonna be in Seattle.
God, thank goodness we're not going back to Washington again.
So they have the Thursday game in Seattle, they start in Wichita against SIU Edwardsville. I don't even know who that is. I literally have never heard of that team before.
First time program that made it in.
Yikes! Houston's gonna. Welcome to the NCAA tournament, SIU Edwardsville. Your prize is the Houston Cougars.
So I guess the fun part here is, do you guys see any potential upsets? Gonzaga is the other 8 seed, and that's one I don't know if I wanted to see Gonzaga. Brandy, I think we were talking about this yesterday.
Oh, Gonzaga did get the 8 in this.
Yeah, 8 in the Houston.
Yeah, Gonzaga. Yeah, we were talking about this. Gonzaga is on, and not because I think they're going to be amazing and whatever. They're still top 10,
Georgia,
top 10 team from the metrics, but Mark Few's on a 9-year win streak or 9-year streak of making Sweet 16s. So probably what I would consider one of the best quick turnaround coaches in the country. And being an 8 seed and top 10 in the predictive metrics, like, it's not a team you want to see.
Yeah,
Which now that they're filling out some of these 8s, I'm kind of wondering if Memphis is not going to get underseeded like a lot of bracketologists were projecting. A lot of people thought
Georgia,
Memphis would get an 8 or 9, even though they deserve better.
Gonzaga, Georgia will be a fantastic game. I unfortunately think the winner of that is going to have a rough run with it with number 1 Houston. Clemson McNeese, that'll be a fun game. You talk
That's
about a 5-12
really fun.
upset.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
The 5-12 line always seems to happen. That might be my 12 seed I have going. McNeese State versus what probably would be Purdue if things go chalk. That'll be a fantastic
McNeese was going to be
game.
in our region for a minute as well when I was looking at some of the projections. So Purdue versus High Points is the 4-13 in that region.
Yeah, Will Wade is he'll be back before we know it. So let's just be glad we're not going to be seeing him, because that's a team I'm That's a team I would be terrified to play if I'm them. Illinois is the 6 is what I'm seeing here.
Yep, versus Texas, the winner. So Texas has a play-in game versus Xavier to get in. Heavy with the super chat to help with travel meals. Keep Mike away from.
Wait, Texas got in.
microwaves. Yeah. Texas.
Yeah, y'all are ahead
play-in
of
game.
me.
Oh, my bad. I'm ahead of you. Sorry about that.
There's somebody in the comments that's freaking out, like, "Oh, y'all got us beat." Yeah. Like we said earlier, Mike is not allowed to. Yeah, I'm just gonna go find the microwave and unplug it. And
For those
oh
that
my
don't
gosh,
know, what these
Xavier got in too.
Yeah, that's who Texas is playing in the play-in game. For those that don't know, with the super chats, we have a sponsor who is matching dollar for dollar every super chat that people give from now until we head out for the tournament. So today through Wednesday will be the last time. Super chat here from Robert, safe travels, and War Damn Eagle. Appreciate it very much. So if you guys want to help with our travel expenses, super chatting is the way to do it, because we're getting those dollars matched every super chat from now until we head out to the Thursday game versus the winner of Alabama State and who was the other team? I already forgot, man. I'm tripping. Alabama State and some poor team that's going to lose to Auburn in round 1.
Yeah, Robert said also Kentucky's a 3 seed. It's a joke. I mean, I agree with that. Now, I think like a healthy Kentucky would make sense as a 3 seed.
Kentucky playing Troy in Milwaukee. All right. Tennessee is the 2 seed playing in Lexington versus Wofford. Wofford and Tennessee playing to the 2:15 game in Lexington.
Tennessee's going to destroy them.
They are. That's going to be a bloodbath.
That UCLA-Utah State game is interesting. I think both teams aren't that great.
UCLA-Utah State, yeah.
Yeah, so that'll be if any Auburn fans are going to the game and have a full pass for the full weekend. Tennessee will be there, as will UCLA, Utah State, and Wofford. So it doesn't bode well. If you haven't bought your tickets yet, maybe hop on that right now with Tennessee fans and it being so close to the state.
Yeah, well, that's what I was going to say is like the Tennessee fans yeah, they're going to be there in full force. So you need to get those tickets now. Kentucky, I didn't see where they were playing their game.
Milwaukee, Kentucky.
Oh, okay, all right. So that was not going to be home.
And that was, I think, what was on the line with Alabama is it seemed like Alabama and Tennessee, depending on how the game went, and who knows what the selection committee will actually end up doing, is like those could have been switched. And there were a lot of projections that had Alabama going to Lexington, and that would have made 3 years in a row Auburn and Alabama would have played the first weekend in the same spot. And from somebody that was at Birmingham and Spokane, there was nothing worse than seeing Alabama fans cheering for the team Auburn was playing against.
Right. The hate watching was strong in Birmingham when we were here. Super chat here from Our Guards Aren't Peas. Love that name. Remember when Auburn played at Alabama State in the Sting Dome when I was in college? Times have changed. War Damn Eagle. Thank you so much for the super chat. Love the name on YouTube because Our Guards Aren't Peas for sure. I don't even know if YouTube would allow you to put the actual word there, but I love it. Another question
I'm gonna hop off of here, but I'm gonna message you guys. Okay, sorry.
All right, sounds good. Appreciate it, BMAC. We will talk to you soon for sure. Question here from Teresa: will Florida be the number 1 in the last bracket? Undoubtedly, Florida is going to get the last 1 seed. Hoping they would be in the Midwest, so we wouldn't play them until the final. I want all SEC teams on the opposite side. Yeah, I think that Florida will be the 1 seed. I don't see any reason why they wouldn't be. They were slated as a 1 seed. It was going to be Auburn, Duke, Florida, and Houston as the 4 1s, and I think that will continue to be the case. Florida did absolutely nothing to hurt their chances there. They certainly wouldn't drop off of the 1 line. So yeah, I don't see any reason why they wouldn't. Appreciate Robert for gifting the Warport membership. I didn't mention that earlier, but thank you so much for that. Yeah, I mean, so far we haven't seen the full brackets yet, but I don't hate the draw that Auburn got. What are your thoughts on Auburn's draw overall?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to like really look at them compared to everybody and kind of see like, okay, I'm looking at the Midwest right now, and like it's like I need to see the whole thing because it's just like all these thoughts going through my head at once. At first glance, hold on, let me pull it back up here. At first glance, like I said, I mean, from what I've seen Creighton do and then Louisville do versus SEC teams, like on paper, like the only thing that kind of stinks is Louisville will have some home court advantage, but Tennessee had a home court advantage yesterday, and we were both there.
Yeah.
I'm sure
listen,
people watching
home court is not a thing for this team this year. Like, if you're worried about whether or not some other team's going to have more fans, this Auburn team does not care. Like, they went and they played Houston in Houston.
Yeah.
They don't care about that. Like, it's the matchup on the floor. People cheering in the stands do not have impact on the way that this team plays. And it's much different than last year's team, where you have to worry about, like, where they didn't play well away from their building. They played okay on neutral sites, but they didn't do well in away games. That's not this Auburn team this year.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you got the ability to shut both teams up, and there should be no reason that would happen. I mean, just the tournament stack this year. I mean, these are all good 8-9 seeds. I mean, look at it. You've got a 27 win team and a 24 win team. I mean, none of which are quite as battle tested. Then you look ahead at the Sweet 16 possibility here, and like I said, Michigan or A&M. Yale would just be cinema. Poetry. If Yale Cinderella'd their way and you had an Auburn-Yale matchup in Atlanta, like, the headlines for that would be insane. That would break the internet.
It would, like, madness would ensue in the streets. Like, people would be going crazy. And there you have it. Florida is the number 1 seed out west. Just got announced officially. They will be playing their first matchup in Raleigh. And let's see who they get as a 16 seed. Appreciate the super chat here from Alphaholic, who says, War Damn Eagle, let's shake off the bad juju and win some hardware. That's what I'm talking about. Appreciate that very much. Definitely need to make that happen. Norfolk State is going to be the first victim for Florida. Norfolk State is a decent team, but Florida's the best team in the country.
No, Florida's insane. Now. Yeah, I'm picking. I'm assuming there's going to be a War Report bracket challenge. Didn't you send me that out?
Yes, that's actually pinned in the chat. So the bracket challenge is there. If anybody wants to get in, it's $5 to be a part of the bracket. And we have, I think, 100 spots available. Only 2 people have signed up so far, so plenty of time to go ahead and get your $5 in if you are in a state that allows you to participate in those types of brackets. Memphis is a 5 line right now here. So congrats to them. Oklahoma in versus UConn as a 9 seed. So congrats to Oklahoma. The SEC is really dominating these situations right now.
So I like looking here to see, just to kind of compare the other 8-9 seed matchups. I think that's an interesting conversation because of the whole what could have been. And UConn, Oklahoma. Now, I know we talked about this extensively. I mean, Fears was playing out of his mind. Mm-hmm. And what do they say about guards in March? I mean, that dude has gotten hotter and hotter as the season's gone on. Definitely playing himself as a lottery pick for sure, which is good. Don't want to see him sticking around in the SEC next year because that guy can ball. That game versus UConn is going to be really interesting. I'm tempted to pick Oklahoma. Once again, I don't think it's going to matter whoever wins that game against Florida. I don't see anybody here that'll really make any. I don't think anybody there can shake Florida. Now, an interesting one, Grand Canyon. Nothing for Grand Canyon specifically, but I just know last year in Spokane, their students chartered a private jet and rolled up probably 300 or 400 people deep, all painted in purple, just going freaking bananas. So that team, I actually talked to some of their staff there last year. Grand Canyon's they got some basketball spunk. That's a fun little program. That's a fun little program to watch. Not going to lie. I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be making any sort of run, but this was a team. If Brandy was still here, she'd talk about them heavily. I watched Memphis UAB. It stinks. It would have been fun to see UAB win that just from the state of Alabama getting 5 teams in would have been fun. I don't think Memphis has got the horses to make a run, but Brandy really sold me hard on watching out for Maryland. That's a good team. That could be a tough matchup for a lot of people. She were here, she could go a little bit more in depth than that, but she was very much selling me on the dream. Even as a few weeks ago, it was don't want Maryland in the same region as Auburn because that's a team that can do a little damage. So I would kind of circle Maryland there to potentially make a little run. I feel pretty good about them facing off against Florida in the Sweet 16.
Missouri versus Drake is the 6-11 in that one. Texas Tech, UNC Wilmington. Kansas is taking on Arkansas as the 7-10 matchup out.
That'll be That'll be a fun game.
I'm hoping, just for the sake of the competition of all of it, Adu, like, you got to think about like the historic nature of those coaches, but I hope Adu Thero is back for Arkansas and he's able to play in that game. St. John's is the 2 seed out there in the West, playing against, we will see in just a minute here, Omaha. Poor Omaha. Sorry for you. You about to get. I think St. John's is a team to watch out for in this tournament for sure.
Can I give a hot take on this real quick?
Go for it.
I could see it would be the cinema deal. I could see, just because it would be something Cal would do just to piss off Kentucky fans, I could see him getting to the Sweet 16 and upsetting St. John's. That's just something that Cal would do. And that Arkansas team played with spunk and they're beat up. I mean, if they got to,
that's the biggest issue for that Arkansas team going into the end of the season, is they're just not healthy. So if they can get some guys healthy, then they can make a run for sure.
Because on paper they're talented, they've got talent, and they played with a lot of effort. I mean, they were just getting beat up. So maybe this few days of rest can get them going. I mean, that'd be an interesting team to watch. Kansas, once again, I wish Brandy were here. She sold me on the nightmare that is Kansas. I think they're imploding. I don't like Kansas doing anything, but you can never, also on the inverse of that, you can never count out March coaches. And Bill Self, he's done it in March. He knows how to coach this tournament really well.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I say. The coaching matchup between Calipari and Self there in the first round, Kansas versus Arkansas, that's going to get a lot of stories, headlines. They're going to be talking about that one extensively.
And they played against each other. They know each other's game. Am I missing? Where did Michigan State end up?
They were in our region. I think they were the 4 line or the 2 line might have been in the South.
Okay. So can we go back there real quick?
Yeah, for sure. So Teresa, to answer your question really quickly, though, sorry, clicked on the wrong one. 16 teams in the SEC, or excuse me, 16 teams in the SEC, 14 who is out. South Carolina, LSU is the other team who did not make it. 14 SEC teams is 14 out of 16 is amazing. Like, let's just be clear. Like,
yeah, that's
again,
nice.
It proves how difficult this conference is. The ACC, 4 teams from the vaunted ACC, and how much people are trying to tell me that Duke. Again, I'm not saying Duke is a bad team, and we're going to get to your Michigan State team point here in a minute. I'm not saying that Duke is a bad team. I'm saying they did not have a tough route to get to the tournament. Like, 4 teams, bro. There was only 3 other teams that were tournament worthy in your entire conference. Of course, you're supposed to go out there and mop that conference, and you didn't even do that. Get out of here, man. Ben Bloodworth with the super chat. Imagine being South Carolina or LSU right now. It's got to feel tough. Like, are either of those teams even, like, I guess LSU might make an NIT bid, but I don't think South Carolina is even going to make it to the NIT.
And it's tough for South Carolina, because I know so many people said this. It was like, I mean, they just played so many close games. And like, that's just got to be so tough. It wasn't like you're just getting blown out week after week. Like, you were just in it. Heck, even Auburn. Like, they played South Carolina they played Auburn so freaking hard and just lost. And like, that was just like the definition of couldn't get over the hump. Did they have, how many conference wins did they have? Like 2?
2. Yeah.
Oh, 2. Oh, I just pulled that one out of the hat. All right. So I'm looking at the far side of the South region. So this would be, your Elite 8 matchups here. Don't think Ole Miss is going to get past Iowa State. I mean, assuming this is assuming everything goes chalk. So they have North Carolina as the potential 11 seed there. You still with me? Okay.
Yeah. I thought you were going. I thought you were just pausing to say.
Oh no, I was making sure. I was making sure I read that right. Just talk about the fall from grace.
Because North Carolina.
Yeah.
I mean, North Carolina's not. I just don't think they're very good this year. Like, they got hot there at the end of the ACC season, but again, they're playing ACC teams, so I didn't take much from that.
I did the math here, and so when Auburn played UNA, that's kind of your benchmark here. I think I counted it. There were 7 ACC teams ranked lower than UNA and Ken Palm, if that kind of puts that conference in perspective. And I think Virginia was like maybe 2 or 3 spots above UNA. Like, like really historically bad conference. And then I guess you've got Iowa State in here, Marquette. I'm not a Marquette truther. I've kind of hadn't really bought into their. A lot of people talk about that. I don't really buy into their hype and all. And of course, Michigan State. One of the guys works for me, big Michigan State guy. He's up there, so I get just bathed with Michigan State content on the reg at work. And God, Big Ten basketball, and then he'll start talking. He'll start it with that. So I get a lot of the stuff from him there. And Michigan State's the real deal. I mean, they've played some good teams, tough teams. It's a big team, physical team. Obviously, Izzo in March, like it's its own little statement. So I feel pretty confident that assuming everything goes chalk, you see a Michigan State, Iowa State matchup in the Sweet 16. And that'll be a fun game because, I mean, those are two. I mean, remember when Auburn played Iowa State? Now, it seems like Iowa State's kind of fizzled out a little bit more toward the end of the season.
Yeah,
but
they had some injuries mid-season, and some like to their guards, and they function off of their guard in the way that they pressure. But yeah, they did fizzle out a little bit there in the season.
Yeah, they kind of, but it's funny when Auburn does that because I think Iowa State here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So they lost 4 of their last 7 games.
Mm-hmm.
Now if Auburn does that, hang up the season, it's done. But it's just Auburn. You don't talk about that with Iowa State. They lost to Houston, lost to Oklahoma State,
Tough.
BYU in double overtime.
Yeah, BYU's a decent team.
Mm-hmm. And then they lost to BYU again in their tournament in a pretty close game. And the deal here, most of these losses, I mean, Houston was 9-point game, but most of these were all fairly close losses. So that's gonna be a game to look out for. Right there. But yeah, I think Michigan State, I think Michigan, if things go chalk and you did have a Michigan State Auburn Elite 8 matchup, that would be a really, really good basketball game. That would be a tough and hard basketball game. But that would be a really fun one to watch. Michigan State is ranked 8th in KenPom. Michigan State is the 5th rated defensive team, 27th offensive. So yeah, that's gonna be a very similar ratio that Tennessee would be, as far as it's going to be a slugger on defense. You probably see a very similar game there. And then
you got the legend of Tom Izzo.
Yeah, Tom.
I'm pulling up Michigan State here in Bartorvik, because that's where I'm getting my advanced analytics come from. Shout out to Bartorvik for that. Yeah, they in Bartorvik, they are the 5th adjusted efficiency defense and 37 in adjusted offense. They are the 33rd ranked offensive rebounding. Yeah, Michigan State's a tough draw for Auburn. Like, that's the kind of team that Auburn does not play well against. Tough-nosed defensive team, crashes the glass really well, rebounds really well. They're not a great 3-point shooting team. So that's the one thing that you can take away and say, all right, maybe they can, but they defend the 3 really well. So that's a tough matchup for Auburn for sure.
Yeah, I think here, looking at the West region, because the West region is going to face the Southern region. I got that right in the Final Four. If
I'm not even looking at the bracket, the West region, yes, will face the South. Correct.
So if things go chalk there, you would look at Florida. So if everything went chalk and 2 1-seeds advance, which probably doesn't happen, that would be a game for the ages.
For sure.
I don't want to get too far ahead of ourselves because there's a lot of games between now and then and a lot of tough games for both teams. That's what you'd be looking at. I think Florida, the only way I'd see Florida getting tripped up is maybe a Maryland matchup if things go. I'm saying the phrase "go chalk" till kind of over peeling it there. But just for folks know, I'm not a big believer in Texas Tech personally. I just don't know if that's one to be scared. Also, kind of iffy on St. John's as well. I think that would be probably a pretty good run for Florida to have. I think if they were to get tripped up, you would probably see maybe Maryland do it. Maybe, I don't know. I don't think Arkansas. I think Arkansas could get to the Sweet 16. I think that would be pure cinema, but I think they would probably get tripped up there. I don't think Texas Tech is good enough to beat Florida, though. Florida's playing at their max capacity. Now, one thing I saw some people talking about this was was Alabama. You know, a lot of people were saying that how easy was their draw. I haven't paid too much attention to their
While you're pulling up that up, let me get these couple of super chats that we got here. Heavy says that mic is huge. Talking about your mic there.
Oh, it's just close to the camera. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm about to say, I think that's a perspective thing. Jazzy Joe with the super chat. Who is our biggest threat this weekend? So the first weekend matchup, of course, you'll have the winner of Alabama State versus St. Francis, if I am not mistaken on that one. And then you would have the winner of, who's the 8-9 in our region?
Louisville and
Creighton, right?
Creighton, yeah. Sorry, I was like,
so
I think of
Creighton, I think, is the team that is probably closer to a tougher matchup. I think that Auburn matches up well with Louisville, so I'm not, even though that would be a quasi home game for them, right there in Kentucky and Lexington. I think that Auburn matches up better with Louisville. So I would say that Creighton would be the one that you'd have to worry about. And you know, forgive me if you are a fan of Alabama State or St. Francis, and where I'm chalking this up as a win. There's no reason, absent of fluky nature stuff, that like if Auburn has all of their available players, Alabama State has all of their available players, and the refs are calling this game fairly, there is no reason Auburn should lose in the first game to Alabama State or St. Francis. No reason that I can see right now. Now, I haven't watched either of those teams play. I'm just going basically off of the analytics. I will go and take a deeper look at both of those teams before Thursday's game, and I will give you guys a more in-depth and analytical perspective on that. But again, from the analytics standpoint, and I'm just looking at just how they have won games and, you know, adjusted of defensive efficiency, offensive efficiency, how they get their points, that kind of stuff. That's not a matchup that Auburn should lose.
Yeah, historically, the 1 seed losing the 16 seed is only happened twice out of 154 games. So literally there you're looking at, that's a 1% chance of happening. So there's a 99% chance, just via historical data, that will not happen. So you feel pretty good on that. I agree with you. I don't think it's worth a ton of time talking about, hey, in the 1%. I mean, you still address it. You still go over matchups and things. I don't think you spend a lot of time talking about, well, we're going to have a whole episode dedicated to this 1% chance of this happening. Because I agree with you. I mean, it's so historically unprecedented. I do have Creighton's net pulled up here. So Creighton is 5-4 in quad 2 games. So they've lost to Nebraska, San Diego State, Georgetown, and UConn in quad 2. They're quad 1. They're 6-6 in quad 1. They lost to A&M. I'm going over the SEC teams first, that ones Auburn have played. They lost to Alabama, and that was at Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
They lost to Marquette, and they also later beat Marquette. So they lost to Marquette on the road. They beat them at home. They lost to St. John's. They lost to Xavier, and they lost to St. John's again. They also beat UConn on a neutral site, where they lost to them actually at home, strangely enough. So their best win, I guess they beat UConn twice, but that's not really saying a whole lot here. I guess their best win on paper is, I guess, the St. John's game, with they beat them at home, then closely followed by Kansas, and Kansas is not great. I think that they got Kansas when everybody was buying into the Kansas hype when they were ranked number 1, like in November, and that quickly fell off. So, I mean, there's not a ton of just good games that this Creighton team has had, unless you're seeing something I'm not seeing. I mean, even their quad 2 games are pretty. So, I mean, from just a battle tested standpoint, you would really think this shouldn't be something Auburn would struggle with. Like I said, I mean, Alabama beat this team 83-75, and that was played December 14th.
Right.
So, and then Texas A&M played them. Is it going to show me the date? Showed him for Alabama. It's not loading right. Darn it.
You're talking about Creighton?
Yeah. I'm just trying to find similar. I'm trying to find the overlapping opponents there, just to kind of tell the story. Give me 2 seconds. I'll pull exactly when that game was played.
I'm trying to pull it up myself.
All right. Race to the schedule.
It's loading slowly here on Bar Torvik, but I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people hitting these analytic sites right now trying to break down what's happening
So
with this
they
team and
played
that team.
Texas A&M played Creighton. That looks like it was whatever tournament they were playing in. I'm not sure if that
Creighton
was
versus Bama was on December the 14th. Texas A&M versus
November
Creighton was
27th.
November 27th. Yeah.
And that was players, and that would have been, I'm guessing that was players era. And yeah, it was 77 to 73. So, and it stinks that Brandy's gone because she's always good at, like, I don't know, she's pull that stuff out of her hat. Well, Creighton's, small forward is da da da. And I don't know, she just seems to know the weirdest trivia about every single team. But there's more shows to get to on some of that. But I mean, I agree that there seems to be no real reason that Auburn shouldn't get through, that they should struggle. Struggle's the wrong word. I don't want to sound too cocky when I say this. They're poised. They should get to the Sweet 16. No, and if they don't, it is due to fault of their own. Either the same kind of stuff it's been before, multiple statistical categories where Auburn fell short, such as losing the rebounding battle, getting in foul trouble, multiple players getting cold, and then the other team shot way above multiple averages on their own. I mean, it would have to be something catastrophic like that. I think, and we're talking multiple. I mean, it wouldn't just be one deal. It would have to be multiple, and it would have to be by a large margin, just a historical collapse.
Right.
And I don't see that happening. I think this team is just too, even with Tennessee, I felt like that was the first game in a long time where it felt like they just played 40 minutes with just maximum effort and intensity. And, even though they lost, they still played hard. You could just tell they were fired up. And I think they're going to keep that energy going in here. I think playing a 16 seed is going to be good. And I'm circling somebody specifically with Chaney Johnson.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's a guy that just needs a team to help him he needs a get back game. And I think a 16 seed would be perfect for that. Maybe he can score double-digit points. Let's get Chaney to get a double-double this game. I think that would get him right.
I'd love to see something break Chaney Johnson out of his slump here. Heavy with the super chat asking who's officiating our game. I don't think they've announced officials yet, but we will definitely find that information out as soon as we can.
That's a valid question because, I mean, that played a major factor last year. And, I've even seen some noted Auburn haters talking about how, like, they just thought that was just absurdly ridiculous. And, props to Bruce and Chad for keeping it under control. There was a little brief moment in that Tennessee game that it got a little chippy, started by Tennessee. And, Chad gets over there. He throws his hands up. He's walking away, get a little heated, and Bruce grabs him, and they had a little exchange and talk for maybe 30 seconds there to a minute and kind of calmed him down. Did you see that from the media seats?
Yeah.
So nothing more came of it. So can't be having that again. And I mean, it kept the emotions under control. So I think the interesting matchup there, I mean, obviously history, I know we said it earlier, if Auburn gets it to the Sweet 16, they play Yale, that would be pure cinema. I don't think that's going to happen. I personally, out of that match, realistically would want to see Michigan. I think
that would be, listen, there's a lot there in that, right? Michigan, Trey Donaldson versus his former team in Auburn. You've got Danny Wolf on that team who was on the Yale team that beat Auburn. So the storylines are prevalent if Michigan happens to go against Auburn in the tournament.
Yeah, so from a Ken Palm standpoint, ironically, like I said earlier, Michigan is behind Louisville and Ken Palm. So it's just like, of course, that you get the strongest 8 seed. Is that the strongest Ken Palm 8 seed? Who are some of the other 8 seeds?
Let's see.
UConn is 35, and I think Mississippi State's an 8 seed too, right? They're 32.
Let's see here. Let's see. We've got Mississippi State. Yes, is the other 8.
And then who's the final? Who's
Gonzaga,
the final 8 seed?
Gonzaga.
Okay. So in typical Auburn fashion, Gonzaga, they're an 8 seed. They're 9 in Ken Palm. So, that could be a little dicey there. So their streak is undeniable.
Yeah. So I mean, I think Gonzaga would then be the toughest 8 seed that's out there.
Yeah, so like I said,
The highest
Michigan's
rated 8 seed, I should say.
25 in Ken Palm. Texas A&M is 17th in Ken Palm. A&M 44th in adjusted offense, 7th in defense. And to put
A&M's
that
a 4 though.
right. I was saying if this would be if they
Oh, you're
met
saying
up.
going chalk?
Yeah. I'm just putting in perspective of the most likely between them and Michigan if they were to go to one. Michigan 47th in offense, 14th in defense. So what it's going to look like here, just from a pure analytics standpoint, and Louisville, like I said, Louisville was more balanced. And then where was Creighton on here? Creighton is 34th in Ken Palm offense, 42nd defense. So looking at the region here from what to be expecting, Creighton and Louisville are fairly balanced. So that's going to be kind of similar to Auburn. It's going to be a balanced matchup where Auburn currently is sitting at Auburn is sitting at 2 offense, 12 defense. I think the 12 defense just has to go without the teams they've been playing. But then A&M and Michigan are both going to be kind of in that similar that Tennessee line where they're going to be much heavier defensive teams. And we obviously remember that from playing A&M earlier, but Michigan kind of plays that same deal. I was watching Michigan play, I can't remember which team or which game that was a few weeks ago, but it was the slowest pace game. I think it was like 10-12 and it was like 9 minutes left in the half or something. It was just it felt like they were just playing with sand in their shoes. And I was watching it at like half speed. So I don't know if Michigan would like playing with the tempo that Auburn plays with.
Yeah, I mean, listen, as far as matchups are concerned, getting to the Sweet 16, or getting through the Sweet 16, I should say, the only team that's in that bracket that scares me is Texas A&M. Like, I don't worry about UC San Diego. A lot of teams folks are high on them. I don't fear them. Just again, purely analytics, not having watched them play. From a purely analytic standpoint, what UC San Diego may have is I think they're a good 3-point shooting team. Let me take a look at their analytics, because that's always a thing where it's like if a team can just flat out shoot the rock, and they're just crispy offensively in that way, then they can be dangerous because they can catch fire at any time and they can just go out there and make it hell on you. But let me take a look at them and make sure that that's the case.
So that's a 36 on Ken Palm, 57 defense, 30 offense. So it seems Auburn does better with offensive teams. Auburn's typically going to win the tempo battle there. Fun little fact here for everybody to know, and just a little exercise I did last year, not to toot the old horn because I kind of cheated. I filled out a bunch of brackets and I did an interesting study. And I did 3 different brackets for this. I did one bracket where the highest ranked Ken Palm team won. I did one bracket where the Ken Palm team with the highest defensive rating won, and then one bracket with the highest offensive rating won.
Mm-hmm.
The highest offensive rating bracket that I did last year was in the 99th percentile of all brackets, the entire, I guess, that were submitted with ESPN. So the defensive one was like 50%. And then the one that was just highest Ken Palm team was maybe 60 or 70. But I do know the one that was offensive with 99. So going by that, it seems to be that your key winners of your games are going to be who is the better offensive team. And I haven't done that in years past, but I know last year I was shocked when I did that. Now, that bracket did have Alabama go into the Final Four. That also had UConn winning, because those were both 2 strong offensive teams, and that went chalk via the Ken Palm rating. And there were a few upsets that it did predict. Now, the only one that it laid an egg on last year was Kentucky. That actually had Kentucky going pretty far, because Kentucky was a pretty offensive firepower team last year, and obviously they lost.
There is no Calipari factor in Ken Palm. So
they lost hilariously. And like I said earlier, I think the irony of just Kentucky losing with Calipari, Arkansas winning with Calipari at Arkansas, and Kentucky just watching that happen, like there's got to be some weird irony there. And I think there's almost this like stick it to him, and almost like think in a weird way that would be a motivating factor for Calipari, because he's just like that petty and just that all, like I feel like his antics have just been like amplified since he left Kentucky, because it's just like he's not under pressure cook anymore. So just like all the essence of him can just go. And like his press conferences have just been like wilder than ever. So that would be something I could totally see happening. Arkansas going on some weird little run. Yeah, so that's going to be one of my, maybe I'm going to think about it. Could be one of my little Cinderella things to watch. But if you watch that with that being more defensive teams and Auburn being more of an offensive team, that should make you feel, pretty good there. Now, Michigan State is on that same vein. Michigan State, I think I said this earlier, 5 defense, 27 offense. Michigan State is going to be a defensive team as well. So, and the teams that Auburn, use my phrase again, if it goes chalk, could face up against, same kind of deal there. We'll just look at Iowa State just for the conversation's sake there. Same kind of deal there, a stronger defensive team than an offensive team. Auburn probably remembers that well from when they faced them. And just for conversation's sake, I don't believe in them. But since they are one of the higher seeds there, Marquette is going to be they're actually pretty balanced. They're 32 offense, 28 defense. That's going to be a more balanced team. And then Ole Miss, the 4th time we played Ole Miss, we know Ole Miss's game. So I don't think we need to waste too much breath on what they'll end up doing. So we've seen them. So I would be utterly shocked if Ole Miss were to somehow make a run to get through that. But that 4 times in the season would be insane.
Yeah. Super chat here from Ben, who says, is Texas the first instance where the SEC tournament is mattering for seeding ever? I don't know about ever other than winning it, but yeah, it definitely helped them. And it helped Oklahoma too. Like Oklahoma played their way into this tournament in the SEC tournament. So did Texas. I think it's fair to say that Arkansas winning a game helped them as well. So, I guess we're in a new era of college basketball where the SEC tournament has some sort of weight in the eyes of the committee. Maybe they just got tired of people saying that to them over and over again. They're like, all right, I guess we'll pay attention to that freaking tournament down there in Nashville.
Well, I guess there's so many quad 1 games in that tournament. I guess it kind of had to matter.
Yeah, maybe that's a good point. Maybe it's the nature of how good the SEC is this year that made it matter more than other years, where you really only end up, in previous years you might have had 3 or 4 good teams, and this year you've got like 8 teams that are KenPom top 50 teams, and you're just like, all right, well, this matters a little bit more this year. Hey, SEC, it just means more, and it actually means more this year. Look at that. Not mad at that at all.
So here's a fun question here. I'm trying to glance at it all. I don't have a full bracket. I miss printing the bracket out. I'm just thinking like 2003 prime time.
I'm looking at it. What do you want to know? I got the full bracket here.
So I'm asking your opinion, and I guess chat. Am I allowed to talk to the chat? I'm a guest. I'm going to do it anyway. Chat. Who do you think has the hardest region? I feel
yeah.
like,
So somebody actually asked this question to us earlier, and let me grab this super chat before I get to it. Heavy says, I'm too lazy to look for myself. How many SEC teams are in the tourney? The answer is 14. 14 of the 16 SEC teams are in the tourney, or in the field of 68. Right. So a couple of them are in play-in games, but 14 of the 16 have made the NCAA field of 68 this year. But this question was asked earlier by James Barnett of us, and we can kind of wrap that into that same conversation. He asked, fellas, out of the 4 number 1 seeds, who is likely to get beat first? So of the teams that are the number 1 seed, we're talking about Auburn, Duke, Florida, and Houston. Who is the most likely to get out of this tournament first? So again, we just kind of talked about this from Auburn's standpoint. I'm not in fear of anybody. UC San Diego, again, really good 3-point shooting team. I did go and look at their stuff. They're 53rd in the country in 3-point percentage, 36.5% 3-point shooting team. So they can shoot it from the outside. I'm going to look at their conference 3-point shooting team because that would be their most or rating. That'll be their most recent games. 36.5. They're just consistently above 36% 3-point shooting team. So they're a team that can get hot from 3, and they shoot the ball well Actually, they shot at 37% in conference games, and so they have a high. They were the highest offensive efficiency in their conference. So they do a really good job on the offensive end. Where they don't scare me is on the interior. They shoot a high percentage, but they don't have a lot of height, which made them a bad offensive rebounding team. Tallest guy on that team is 6'10", and he barely plays any minutes for them. As far as guys that play minutes, they have a guy who's 6'8". But they just don't have the interior stuff, I think, to be able to bother Auburn. So having said all of that, I feel comfortable in the draw for Auburn that if things go chalk, that Auburn will make it to the Sweet 16. The question is, will they face Texas A&M there? And that's a bad matchup for Auburn. So the earliest right now, if I'm just giving, gut projections that Auburn should be exiting this tournament, would be the Sweet 16 if they were to face Texas A&M. If they faced anybody else in the Sweet 16, I think you can pencil Auburn in for the Elite Eight. I'm not saying they can't beat Texas A&M. I'm just saying that's the first possible spot I would see them going out. Duke is playing in a bracket where in the second round they would see the winner of Mississippi State versus Baylor. I think that.
I mean, that's a tricky one.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that Baylor could beat them. Mississippi State maybe, but that's going to take some heroics from Josh Hubbard, which I'm not putting beyond him to be able to do. Then Sweet 16 creeping on up here, Liberty, Oregon, Arizona, and Akron. I could see Duke going out in the Sweet 16 as well, because there are teams that I feel like match up pretty well with Duke there. Houston.
Yeah, it's hard to say just because Duke, all these other 1 seeds are so battle tested, what they're capable of.
Right. And that's why I'm saying, like, I can see a team like Mississippi State potentially battling it out with Duke, and then they go out in the Elite Eight in the round of 32 rather than getting to the Sweet 16.
Well, just like Bruce Pearl said with A&M, it's like, hey, they came out and, what do you say, like, punched us in the jaw or whatever. And like, what's going to happen when somebody does that with Duke and they're used to just kind of playing bully ball? And it's like, oh, whoa. Here's a physical team. We're down.
When you look at Clemson, that's the team that beat them in the ACC. That they're built in a very similar way to Mississippi State as far as the physicality and their ability to attack the glass. And so, I mean, Mississippi State is not as good defensively this year as they've been traditionally, but I do think that that's a team that matches up well as far as what is an Achilles heel for Duke. Could potentially see that. Houston has Gonzaga, Georgia as the potential 32-round, second-round matchup there. I don't see. I mean, listen, Brandy talks about Gonzaga and their penchant for getting to the Sweet 16, so maybe that's tough there. But I think Houston's a better team than both of those. Now they have Clemson, McNeese, and Purdue High Point as the potential Sweet 16 opponents. Again, Clemson's a team that likes to brawl a little bit on the interior. I don't see. I think Houston's better than all of those folks, though. Houston's not going to be my pick. I'll just tell you that right now. Florida also not going to be my pick for the first team out. So honestly, it's going to be between Auburn and Duke. Right? I don't like both of them have a matchup that I think could get them out of there in the Sweet 16. And potentially Duke even in the round of 32. So
yeah, I mean, I'll say this. I think Auburn has a safer. If Auburn lost before the Sweet 16, it's because Auburn beat themselves, just playing horrifically unsloppy basketball. Duke, you're right. I mean, there's some trap games in that area. Got to watch out for. And then, Houston. I'd have to look up how Houston would fare up with some of these other teams that they could be facing. I know Purdue. I mean, I just know when we saw Purdue in Birmingham, Auburn made them look so bad. But obviously, they're a little better than that. I don't know if I'm a Purdue truther here. It's tough. I mean, honestly, it could legitimately be. It could just legitimately be Auburn. So I mean, that kind of begs the question there of like, do we think Auburn got the worst pull, or do you think it's just the worst pull in the sense of matchups? Now, I don't know. Obviously, we know Auburn much more intimately, so I think it's easier to answer that question in the sense of how Auburn matches up with some of these teams. Florida, I don't think it matters. Like I said, I think if I'm picking a bracket right now, I'm picking Florida to win it. I don't see anybody that's touching Florida. They're just playing insane right now. Florida, anybody watching this, if you don't have Florida in your Final Four, I don't know what you're doing. So Florida's not it.
Yeah, I don't know that just because of how good Florida is, it's not even really about who they're playing, right? Like they've got Maryland, who's a tough team. I think that Missouri can get hot and go on a run for sure, but they wouldn't see Florida potentially until the Final Four, excuse me, until the Elite Eight. Um, but I don't. I mean, and Missouri has beaten Florida already this year, but again, Florida just
Different.
you
There's a
know
different team. That
um,
Florida has come.
St. John's. St. John's would be the only I think St. John's is a team that would match up with Florida and get them out of there to the Final Four. Like I do like St. John's a lot.
Am I a hater, or have I just not followed St. John's enough that I just don't believe in them?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if which of those things would be the case for you, but I think that St. John's is a really good team, specifically on the defensive end. I think that they really get after it on defense, and I like teams that can defend and have good wing players, and St. John's has both.
So I'm going to be perfectly honest. I'm not as, they're like the Levitt and Ken Palm. They're a very good defensive team. Number one, adjusted, 65 in offense. And here's why I'm going to not believe in St. John's. And I haven't watched any St. John. I think I've watched it passively. I haven't paid a ton of attention to them. I'm just going to go with net. They're 6-4 in quad one. They've won all their other they've won all their other quadrants. No losses there. They lost to Baylor 98-99. They lost to Georgia 63-66 on a neutral site. They lost to Creighton 56-57. Close game there. And they lost to Villanova 71-73. So all the losses they've had are close. Pretty typical for defensive teams. Their best win would be Marquette, home and neutral. And then up there, too, would be a close game with UConn. I guess they played Marquette 3 times. And then they played Creighton once where they beat them and then they lost. So I'm going to keep the same energy that I've kept with Duke for criticizing Duke and say the St. John's team isn't really super battle tested. I mean, they lost to Georgia.
I don't disagree with that. I don't disagree that they're not super battle tested. I just think that, again, if you're going on a contest of non-battle tested teams, which is going to be most teams that are not in the SEC, St. John's would be a team that I think is good enough to get through the competition they have in front of them. And because they defend well and they have, and this is the thing, they defend well and they have, again, good wing players. And I think that that's what you have to be able to do to beat Florida is have guys that can go and get buckets and defend well, particularly against their really good guards that are the initiators of their offense. And that's where St. John's flourishes. So that's why I think that they could be a potentially tough matchup.
Yeah. I mean, we'll see. I'm like I said, this would be a conversation Brandy would thrive having. I'll just be a notified hater. I don't know how St. John's. I know they got some size. All right, don't they have some pretty big bigs?
They do. They have some size on them as well. So again, good defensive team. So I believe in that ability that they have to go out there and defend.
I don't think they get, in my opinion, if they do face Florida in the Elite Eight, I don't think they get past Florida. I think the only chance St. John's would have is by some miracle, somebody, most likely Maryland, or I don't think Oklahoma's got him in it. I don't think Oklahoma's got in him either. But
no.
I mean, Maryland, maybe somebody has to upset Florida somehow, some way. But I still don't see anybody beating Florida at this point. I mean, Florida's just
listen, I don't disagree with you. Florida is an amazing team. Again, I think the only team that's in that region with them that really has a shot just on paper is St. John's, though. That's it.
So, but let's also
might as well pencil them in.
Let's also just take a moment to appreciate this. And I don't know if this has happened before or what the number is for this, but Auburn has played all of the number 1 seeds.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Auburn has played
2 and 2 versus those seeds. Number 1 seeds. Excuse me. Well, they're they're 1 and 2 versus the number 1 seeds. Lost to Houston and Florida. Lost to Duke and Florida, beat Houston.
Right. They played the 2 of the 2 seeds twice, Alabama and Tennessee.
And then going to your 3 seed line, they played Kentucky, which is still bizarre that they're a 3 seed. And then I got a tiny little bracket here. Where's my other 3 seeds? Not Wisconsin. Not they did play Iowa State. So then you played Iowa State, and then not Texas Tech, and then I'm sure they got a handful of 4 seeds in here. Of course, you played Texas A&M. Don't want to talk about that one. And not Arizona, and then and they played Purdue. So a lot of these top seeds Auburn has already played. It's just crazy. Like, I don't know. The fact that you've played all the 1 seeds, that probably has not happened a ton. If you factor in 1 and then all the 1s and half the 2s, I'd be shocked if that's happened ever. Maybe I could be wrong.
I don't know historically where any of that would be the case. I did see somebody say would they lose their minds if all SEC teams made the Sweet 16. Let's see how.
Well, that's the opposite. I mean, that's the opposite of what happened last year, pretty much. I mean, all the SEC teams laid an egg. I mean, Florida and Auburn famously. I mean, 2 of the hottest SEC teams going into it. Then Alabama was colder than ice. Now, granted, Alabama had an absolute cakewalk last year to the Final Four. So, I mean, like, let's, shout out Greg Byrne for a little bit of, home cooking for getting them set up right. But, I mean, Alabama, I mean, they got, I think I said it right at the beginning of the show here, they get 100-pieced by Florida twice in 10 days. They lose to them in the first round of the SEC tournament, 102-88. Only, topping themselves, or they beat them, like I said, 10 days prior, 105-87. And that's right after a loss to Tennessee, 81-74. They beat Ole Miss, and then they lose to Kentucky, 117-95. So Alabama, to end the season, got 100-pieced 3 times. So, and they want to go to the Final Four. So this kind of like this recency bias, and there's plenty of examples of that too. I was looking back at older teams throughout the 2000s. Like, that happens a lot where teams will kind of go like skidding into the finish line. Now, a really funny stat. Did you see this stat that Henry Patton with OA News tweeted out?
No.
Really funny. It obviously holds no merit. It's just a weird kind of like statistical pattern. So I'm gonna pull it up so I can read it so I don't misquote this. But basically, every other year with odd teams, every other year with.
I think you might have mentioned this to me before, but continue.
Yeah. So okay, I found this tweet. So, a random meaningless trend I stumbled upon: in even years since 2017, the teams that have won the title also won their conference tournament. In odd years, the champion lost on the second day of their tournament. So 2017, UNC won the title. They lost their second game. 2018, Villanova won the title, and they won their conference. 2019, Virginia lost the second game of their conference tournament, won the title. Obviously, COVID. Baylor lost their second game, won the title. Kansas won their conference, won the conference tournament, won the title. UConn lost second game, won it. 24, UConn won both. And 2025, here we are. Auburn also lost their second game. Not that pattern holds any merit. It's just really strange how that would be happening every other year. And then you have a 1 seed that is poised in that same pattern. It's a big stretch, but it would be wild if that actually happened. And that tweet will expect that to go viral if Auburn somehow wins this on April 7th. But yeah, I mean, I don't know if one matchup has any, one better than another. Because, I mean, I kind of look at it and it's like, okay, I almost kind of like where Florida's at more. It's like if you could just get that region, maybe swap those teams around. But then again, like I said, UConn, that could be a little trap game. And even Oklahoma was, that Auburn pulled away at the end, but they definitely kind of was a thorn in their side. And I know, like I said, you got some St. John's believers in here. I think Duke. I mean, Wisconsin's a good team. That's a good 3 seed. I mean, Alabama's Alabama. You just never know what they're going to be at any given time. I I don't know. It's kind of hard to see at first glance. I guess maybe that's a question for the chat. Who they think had the, like, I think we asked this earlier, who they think kind of has the easier region. I want to say probably the Midwest, just at first glance, might be the hardest, with Kentucky as a 3 seed being just like the clown emoji next to them.
Okay, so Midwest, Houston, the 2 seed there is Tennessee. Those are 2 tough teams. The 3 seed is Kentucky. 4 seed is Purdue. I mean, I guess because we played Purdue, I'm just like, eh. And then Kentucky, if they're not healthy, I don't know. I mean, they're going to beat Troy likely, but the next game they would have is Illinois. Let's see. Next, you've got Clemson and UCLA as the 5, 6. Illinois is the 6. UCLA. I mean, this bracket that's not tough to me. I think Louisville has a pretty good path to get to at least an Elite 8 out of this.
No,
I mean,
you mean
Houston. Yeah, I think
Houston.
Houston has a good path to get to at least an Elite 8 out of this. I can say they could face Tennessee out there. Tennessee would have to go through Wofford, nothing there. UCLA or Utah State. Utah State's a decent team, and then Tennessee versus Kentucky potentially if they get past Illinois. I think Tennessee is going to win that matchup. Yeah, I don't know, man. That doesn't feel very tough to me. I think the team, it might be this region that Duke is in, actually. That's the toughest. Like, you've got Arizona in that region. You've got Bama in that region. You've got
Baylor and Oregon aren't bad.
Baylor, Oregon, Mississippi State, St. Mary's, Vandy. That's a pretty tough draw right there. Auburn has Iowa State, Michigan State, Texas A&M, as I think kind of the tough games in that bracket there. Florida's got UConn, just because, I mean, UConn just in this time of year, you just can never count them out. Missouri, Texas Tech. I'm not really sold on Texas Tech. St. John's. I don't know, man. I think it's between the South region and the West as the toughest ones for me. I don't know.
Now, if things do hit what could be a really fun game, if things kind of go as planned on that East region, would be Alabama versus Wisconsin. That would be because Wisconsin's a pretty heavy offensive team as well. That's that very much screams smash the over.
Yeah.
Because they're 13th on KenPom, 13th offense, 27 defense. So I mean, the Big Ten's good physical conference. I mean, that's a team that's not going to bow down. Wisconsin's done well in March historically. I mean, they've made some runs, so they know how to do it. And I mean, Newark it's going to be. I'm looking. I guess that's the other thing too. Is like that sucks for them to have to go to Newark because their first game is going to be in Cleveland. So, I guess Newark is going to be closest for Duke. Relatively. I mean, Auburn's got Atlanta on lock. San Francisco, that sucks for Florida because that's a haul for them.
Yeah, I mean, but shoot, they're really good. I don't think that's gonna is there a team that's out west that is?
Well, that's the thing. I mean, Grand Canyon. You're talking Missouri, Texas Tech, Kansas. I mean, there is all the St. John's being New York. All these.
Yeah, I mean, all these teams are closer than them because they're all the way on the East Coast. So yes, I mean, there's no other East Coast team besides UConn.
Mm-hmm. Indianapolis. That's, I guess, going to be closer for Tennessee folks being up there in Knoxville. So if Tennessee gets to the Sweet 16, you'll probably see a pretty nice traveling there. Of course, if Kentucky were to make it as well, that would be quite you'd probably see a really good traveled group there. Houston got a big airport. They can fly everywhere. I guess that's close for Purdue as well. And then Newark isn't super far from Duke. Rough for Alabama. And then Wisconsin, still probably farther for them there. So, I mean, really, Auburn kind of hit the jackpot as far. Yeah, that's what you should
As
get
far
as
as
the
their
number one overall
fans.
seed.
Yeah,
Yeah,
as
for
far as their
travel.
fans getting good travel, they absolutely did. Here's a good question here, and I'm gonna take a bit of this from what James just said. He asked, could Bama and Tennessee come out as the 2 seed winner? And I'll twist the question a little bit. Who is the 2 seed that is like who got the strongest 2 seed in their bracket, right? Not just from like so you have Tennessee, St. John's, Alabama, and Michigan State. Of those, which do you feel like is the strongest 2 seed?
You asking me that, or you
Yeah,
asking
I'm
the
asking
chat?
you. I'm asking you. I'm asking the chat as well, but I'm asking you while the chat ponders that. Tennessee, Bama, Michigan State, and St. John's.
It's between I'll say right off the bat, I'm thinking it's between Michigan State and Tennessee for me. I mean, Alabama lost the head-to-head game against Tennessee. So, and just knowing how Alabama's been, I mean, you saw Alabama got decimated by Florida. Tennessee at least kept it close. I mean, I think you have enough of a case study there where just Alabama's going to be as hot as that 3-point shooting any game, but they're just so inconsistent. I mean, I think somebody tweeted out that Cliff only had like 1 rebound against Florida. Haven't checked that myself, but like if you're big, is only getting 1 rebound, like it's not good. So just too many inconsistencies from Alabama, and I think they make up for those inconsistencies with really hot shooting, but also hot shooting is inconsistent. So I'm going to lean with Alabama probably being the weakest 2 seed.
I actually agree with, and this is not my Auburn bias, Alabama hate. There's a couple of things why I say this. If Grant Nelson is actually not going to be able to play, that Alabama team is significantly worse. Even if they are getting back, what's the kid's name that was playing Darian
Reed?
Yeah, if they're if
no, not him. Was that it?
I don't know what his last name is, but even if they get him back, I do think that they're significantly worse without Grant Nelson.
Darian Reed.
But getting Reed back is, I mean, if he's healthier, then it's going to supplement a little bit of that. But as much as I don't think Grant Nelson is a great player, he
was good last March.
He was a huge reason for their run last March. And so he seems to kind of embrace the moment of the big game. And yeah, I don't know that they can go on a run without Grant Nelson. For me, it's between Tennessee and St. John's for the best, even though I respect Michigan State. And you know, I know you're not a St. John's truther. I just think, again, I think defensive teams, Michigan State, St. John's, Tennessee, are always going to be teams that I lean towards. And then I look at their ability to score, particularly from the wing. And I think that of those 3 teams that I just named, not named Alabama, that are 2 seeds, St. John's has the best wing scores out of those 3. So I'm going to put those 2 as my top: Tennessee, St. John's, and I probably give the edge to St. John's the best 2.
So I did confirm that Cliff only got 1 rebound against Florida, which is like, now they did as a team as a whole out rebound, or no, they did not out rebound Florida. Florida out rebounded them 43-38, still fairly close. But the fact that you're big, got 1, I mean, that's kind of the story in him, and even Alabama fans will say this, is that he's been so inconsistent for them throughout the whole season. And that's your big man. And yeah, if Grant Nelson, even if he does come back, what's going to be the status of that knee? And I mean, you can have the same conversation with Cooper Flagg and that ankle. Like we saw Janai was playing within 2 weeks, but it took him probably another 3 weeks after that before you really felt like, okay, that ankle does not seem to be bothering him anymore. I don't know if Cooper Flagg's, or what I guess apparent ankle sprain, was as bad as Janai's was, but still, like, those are big dudes rolling there. Like, that hurts. So, you know, who's going to know how that's going to affect Duke there? I mean, same kind of deal. You're right. I mean, if Nelson is back and it's a benign thing and he ices it and rehabs it and he's, you know, by the Sweet 16 or even the second round game, he's better. Because, I mean, you would think that Alabama could probably rest Grant Nelson against Robert Morris and be fine.
So, they should be able to, yes.
You know, now St. Mary's and or Vanderbilt, I don't know if I said I think I like St. Mary's in that one too, just because St. Mary's is a that's a scrappy team. I saw them dismantle Gonzaga earlier. that'll be like, so I think if this goes, St. Mary's, Alabama would be one to watch. And like I said, if all things go accordingly to Wisconsin, Alabama would be a wild deal. So I mean, it's very likely that Alabama will probably get the Sweet 16 here. Out of the 2 seeds, I said St. John's probably also makes it Sweet 16. Tennessee, I mean, God, Tennessee looks so freaking good. I mean, I don't see how Tennessee doesn't make it to the Elite Eight.
Let's see what Tennessee's path is, right? So they play Wofford, and then they get the winner of UCLA versus Utah State. I could see that. I wouldn't be surprised if Utah State pulled off an upset there. But I would, if you let's just go chalk and say they play UCLA. I don't think that they have any trouble with either of those teams, but UCLA. Then you get Kentucky versus Troy, and then the winner of Illinois versus whoever their play-in game is. I'll say Illinois advances to play Kentucky there. I could see Illinois getting the upset there, so you could potentially see Tennessee versus Illinois.
I guess I'm a notified hater because I keep saying the phrase "I'm not sold on blank." I'm not sold on Illinois. I guess I'm not sold on anybody.
Here's my issue, right? It's not that I think Illinois is so good; it's I think Kentucky is hurt. And I don't know.
Oh, Kentucky. I thought you meant over Tennessee. I'm sorry. Yeah.
No. I was saying Tennessee would play Illinois potentially.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. No, Kentucky, if Butler's out and the rest of the guys, like, yeah, I mean, Kentucky's so beat up. A healthy Kentucky team would have been dangerous this year because they're out 3 starters and 1 backup point guard. Like, I mean, that's 4 players out. That's like huge. 3 of which would have been starters. Like, and that sucks because it's going to put a bad taste in Mark Pope's mouth, or I guess put a bad taste in people's mouth for his first season. But it's like, man, you got to put that in perspective. Like, he had some bad injury luck, and he probably would have had a fantastic first year. I mean, 3 seed, I mean, you still hang your hat on that. That's going to still make Kentucky fans happy, but it's just like, is what it is. But I think Michigan State, jumping over to the region that Auburn's in here, because I mean, that's going to be the one that I think all the viewers are going to be most fascinated with. Yeah, I don't see them getting upset by Bryant, Marquette, New Mexico. That'll be a really weird. That to me is almost like a coin flip game. I think Michigan State will get past Marquette, and Iowa State's pretty freaking good too. I don't see Ole Miss doing the thing. Michigan State, Iowa State will be a fascinating game. If somehow Ole Miss does upset Iowa State, I think Michigan State steamrolls them there. I think Michigan.
I'm not mistaken. One of the guards for Iowa State is still out.
Okay, then I still think Michigan State safe
Keyshawn
path
Gilbert, Iowa State starter to miss the NCAA. So Keyshawn Gilbert he's their like one of their best defensive guards. He's not going to play. So that is that could be a thing for them.
And if Auburn could take care of business and make it to the Elite Eight, I think Auburn fans are going to buy all the tickets to Atlanta. Atlanta's easy to fly into, but Michigan State, I mean, that's going to be a home game for Auburn. So that's one of those deals where I think you got to look at your fan or look at the fans and say, guys, this is a game to show up for. Michigan State, they've got impressive wins and they've got really dud losses. Like they lost to USC, California, not South Carolina. They also lost one to UCLA. They lost a close one to Wisconsin. So, I mean, they've dropped some. They lost to a bad Kansas team. And they also lost to Memphis. That Auburn took care of that Memphis team, obviously trains their property. And then probably most embarrassingly, they lost to Indiana. And that was in February. Like, that was a recent game. They lost 71-67 to Indiana at home. So this Michigan State team they played a close game in North Carolina. And also, Ohio State that Auburn absolutely dismantled. Michigan State, that was a 62-69 game. So I mean, that was a close one as well. So I mean, they beaten a good Michigan team. We've already talked about the Michigan team. They beat a good Maryland team. I mean, the Big Ten is no slouch of a conference at all. So, but also Michigan State's not really beating the brakes off of a lot of teams. If you look at a lot of these games, they are fairly close, which does bode well for Auburn for that matchup. But you don't know kind of what Michigan State team you're going to get kind of any given day. I mean, even when they played Samford, like the Samford right up the road here in Birmingham, that was 83-75. So I mean, it's only an 8-point. That was a quad 3 game at home.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's
James
not like
just asked this question about Michigan
ahead,
State. Let
sorry.
me throw this out here while you're talking about it. Quad 1 resume for Michigan State: 13-4 in quad 1 games, and 5-2 in quad 2 games.
I've got 13-5 for Michigan State here for what I'm looking at, unless I'm missing something. There's been an update.
No, I'm saying I'm looking at Bartorvik, and that's what they have. So I don't know what the fifth one would put. Probably maybe maybe they didn't show the one in their tournament potentially.
I've got Kansas, Memphis, USC, UCLA, and then Wisconsin, which was yesterday. So maybe it hasn't updated the Wisconsin game on there
Possibly,
yet.
Yeah.
So with the loss to Wisconsin was yesterday, 74-77. So this Michigan State team is one that plays teams really close. Like I was saying earlier, defensive team. So, that's one of those ones where, I mean, it could be very similar to kind of this Tennessee game where it comes down to the wire. But I think this would be a team that if Auburn can kind of get away from them and run that momentum, this is probably not a Michigan State team that doesn't typically like to score a lot of points. That's going to be able to come back on them. So if you do get this Elite Eight game, you probably have a few ways that it can roll right for you. It's a physical team, so that's the other thing too. I mean, it can also, you can see how it goes wrong, but I mean, there is there's that path to the Final Four there. If you just don't get tripped up against Texas A&M or Michigan, if those end up who you playing in. So I almost think the Sweet 16 game might be a little harder than the Elite Eight game. So I think by that point you've kind of taken some of the pressure off. You're on a groove. Right. You're rolling, you got fans there. There's a lot more hype and excitement. And then, then you see you see Goliath, which would likely be Florida in that Final Four. And I think by that point, if you made it to the Final Four, you can throw your hands up and just say, hey, we've done it twice. And I guess what that'd be 6 seasons. And, if you go further than that, great. But I think that's you hang your hat on an incredible season if you made it that far. I think I don't like this conversation. Is it worth asking floor ceiling or just let that go?
I mean, we talked floor ceiling a little bit earlier today on our show. And looking at this bracket, to me, the Sweet 16 would be the floor. Like that would be the place where I could see the first exit for Auburn. Again, if it's Texas A&M that you face in that round, I could see that being the case. Ceiling to me, looking at this bracket, and, again, I hate to say it because I love Auburn, but I think Florida's the best team in the country. If Auburn places Florida, the Final Four is where the run ends.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, I think I say that wholeheartedly there. I mean, I think if you make it to the Sweet 16, I mean, you definitely feel like you left a little bit on the table. I mean, I think your Elite Eight's a sweet spot. I don't think you look yay or nay on that one there. You're still pretty happy. That's a great run, all things considered. I mean, by that point, it's just it's kind of a little bit of a luck based thing there. You're just good teams playing good teams. It's not like the NBA where you've got multiple games to hash it out for. But yeah, I mean, if you beat Florida, it has to be Auburn played out of their mind. That's everybody, and y'all talked about this earlier. Everybody firing on all cylinders. That's big game to hot.
I don't know that I would agree because here's why I disagree that Auburn has to play out of their minds. I think Auburn has to play better defensively than they did in that first game versus Florida, and they can play pretty much the same way they did offensively, and they did not play out of their minds offensively. They played an average Auburn offensive game because they scored enough points to win. They just gave up way too many. And so defensively, I'll agree with you. I don't know that you have to have some superhuman offensive game in order to win that game. But if you're saying, I don't know that there's a way that Auburn can slow down this machine of an offense that Florida has, and they've got to outscore them, then yes, I'd agree with that.
Well, my reason of saying that defensively there is because just the pattern that it's been is when Auburn plays defensive basketball, they're getting nailed with the whistle more disproportionately. It seems like maybe that's just the homer take of it. And that's going to affect typically Chaney. Janai's been actually doing a pretty good job of just like letting the fouls go. Like I'm okay with Janai giving up an easy layup to not get in foul trouble because we need Janai in there way more than we needed that team not to score 2 points. If you think I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong, but I feel like that's pretty undeniable. But yeah, like Chaney and Dillon, and then even kind of Miles to an extent. And then it seems like teams have been getting these stupid chippy calls of just like, Ziegler did it yesterday. It pissed me off so much. Of
When
just
he
like,
stopped in front of Denver.
yes,
That was crazy.
and I've seen that happen a few different times throughout the season, where like they'll kind of do these little break checks, and Denver will pop foul, and it's like, no, he stepped backwards. Like
Right.
it was crazy. So if you get some of your key guys like that in trouble, so I feel like if it starts to get a defensive slugfest, then I think you start worrying about like, oh crap, foul trouble.
Right.
If it's just shootout where you get Tahad hitting threes, if Tahad and Miles get hot, Chad just chaos, and Janai is hitting 20 points. I'm going to say this. To make a run in March, no matter what happens, Janai's got to hit 20 plus a game. I don't think you have a game. And I think you need to also have Janai hit double-doubles. I think Janai hits a double-double.
I'll agree with the double-double. I'll disagree with he needs 20 points. He'll need 20 points if you are struggling to shoot threes, because Auburn has guys that can absolutely light it up from three. I don't know that you need 20 points from Janai every game to get the win. But you can't have Janai sub 20 and only hit like 5 threes in that game and get dubs, like unless your defense is just a freaking lockdown, which again, once you get to the Sweet 16, again, Texas A&M, that's the thing you got to shoot threes against. I said this when we were going into that game versus Texas A&M. You're not going to win versus Texas A&M not shooting the three well, just because of how they defend. And that's actually a perfect example of what I mean. I don't know that Janai needs 20 versus Texas A&M, but you damn sure better hit a bunch of threes in that game.
Okay, then let's agree on that point. Double-doubles.
Double for sure. He's got to be better on the boards in that game. Chaney's got to be better. Like the team as a whole has to rebound way better than they did versus Texas A&M in that game in College Station. But I think Janai Broome, he can't be a single-digit scorer for Auburn to go on a run in this tournament for sure. And he needs to be the defensive rebounding monster that they need out there versus teams that, again, if you go and look through these teams, there's not a bunch of big teams out there that Auburn has in the path to get to the Sweet 16. So Auburn should be able to rebound well versus those teams.
Yeah, it's I guess to keep it Auburn focused. In this, there may be some obvious ones here, but who else are you looking for in March that, hey, this has got to happen if we have any hopes of a run?
Say the last part again. If what now?
Like player X has to do Y for us to make a run.
I think you need, my X factors were going to be Chaney Johnson and Denver Jones for this tournament, because I think that those are. Denver Jones is he's the guy that's kind of the tip of the spear when it comes to the defense. Like he's the guy that makes it difficult for those point guards and those lead guards to get going. And this is a guard driven tournament. Your guards control the pace of games. You need Denver Jones to be good at what he does, which is shutting down how they're initiating their offense. And you've got to have more than Janai Broome on the boards, right? Like I talked about Janai Broome not having a great rebounding game. He was still the leading rebounder for Auburn. The fact is he had 7 boards in that game, and no other player for Auburn had more than 3, right? And so you've got, I think that's no other front court player for Auburn had more than 3. I think one of the guards maybe did. But like you have to have Chaney Johnson show up in a big way, particularly on the glass, and he needs to be efficient offensively in order for Auburn to do what they need to do in this tournament. So I think it starts with Denver Jones on the defensive end, and he needs to be efficient offensively and do the things that he does. But Chaney Johnson's the other guy that I think has to play better.
Yeah, and I'm gonna kind of zoom out and give a take here, and I think the key to this is going to be Auburn's bench, and obviously that's going to include Tahad. That's going to include Chaney. Is you have to have, 3 points from the bench is
unacceptable,
inexcusable. Yeah,
you can't have 3-point because we've been talking about all season about the depth of Auburn. That doesn't show any depth there when you can't get scoring from your bench.
Right. That's that's just what it really, that's what it gets to here. Dillon getting 7 points against Tennessee is good. I think if Dillon can get between 4 and 6 a game, I'm happy with it. I'll take it. Just because just think about Dillon, he's not missing shots. It's not like Dylan's bricking. He's dunking or he's not shooting. So it's
For the
not
most
like
part,
if
that's true. Yeah.
Dylan misses a shot, for the most part, it's going to be it's going to equate to a turnover. But when Taha goes 0-8, well, I don't know how many of those actually got rebounded by Auburn, but probably not many, if not any at all. So the problem is that means that was 8 times Tennessee got the ball back, or 5, 6, 7, however many times it actually was. I don't have the play-by-plays in front of me here. But yeah, I mean that's what it's. I mean that's what you're gonna have to get to. Let me see here. I want to look at bench points versus Ole Miss, and I don't have this data in front of me. You may know it off the top of your head. For some of the wins and losses lately, how has it looked like the bench has done? Because I think that's a really key component here. Because against Ole Miss, your bench and Sky Howard played a minute, but let's see, 10. So you got 17 bench points from, well, asterisks on there. Technically, Chad was counted as the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So if we swap Chad and Chris, because that was just circumstantial because of Chad kind of being in the doghouse, so that would be you got 10 points from your bench there, 3 from Chaney, which I think is too low. You got a good, as Alabama would call it, probably some blue collar points from Jaheim with a good rebound put back up, and then Tahad got 5, which. God, I mean, I think you need about damn near double digits from Tahad every single game deep in the tournament.
So where I'll disagree again with that is I don't know that Tahad has to score, but he can't both not score and not be a guy who's initiating offense for other guys, right? Like I'm fine with Tahad having 9 points and 7 assists.
Yeah,
but
he only had 1 assist.
Yeah,
and,
he can't be that. Cannot be the case for
2 turnovers. So yeah, I'll give you that there. He cannot be negative on the assist to turnover ratio, even though 1 to 2 is not horrible, but still flirting with danger.
Yeah. He either needs to contribute as a scorer or he needs to contribute as a playmaker, but he can't be both non-scoring and non-playmaking, because then like he's too ball dominant for that to be the case. Like when the ball gets to Tahad, he's a guy that it doesn't really leave his hands a lot after that possession. So he either needs to be scoring or he needs to be finding scores for other people. He can't just be a guy that's just out there not contributing in any real way.
Because Kentucky, another 3-point game from Chaney, got 5 from Semo. If you can give me 5 points from Chris Moore, because Chris is only going to take efficient points. If he's shooting it, it's going to be at a high clip because he's getting it under the goal. He's wide open. And anytime Chris hits a 3, just like let's go. They'll give him that wide open 3. And then of course you had that 21-point game for Tahad. That's very helpful. So when he can go off like that, but I want to go back to A&M here because that was one of the games, and I mean I think that's the key to the bench. But what are we kind of seeing here when Auburn was in full form? You saw a lot of that production out of Chaney. I know you said that earlier about Chaney being that X factor, but like I'm hoping. I know we said it early in the show that 16 seed is the wake up call for him, but like. I won't put too much pressure on him and be like, Chaney, it's up to you here. But like, that's a guy, he's got all the physical abilities in the world. He's got the athleticism. Nothing stopping Chaney but Chaney, in my opinion.
Yeah, there's no reason why Chaney Johnson. I think the Texas A&M game again was one of those games where the physicality, he was in foul trouble, I think, a bit in that game. But Tennessee game, he wasn't in foul trouble. He had looks that he normally makes and he just missed them. And so that I don't know that there's I can't point, and somebody asked me this on the show earlier, I can't point to a reason why Chaney struggled really. So I don't know what it is. And I haven't talked to him to see, everything all right, man, what I'm saying, what's going on? Like, I just think he just needs to lock back in and get back into the Vanderbilt game type of form where it's like, man, Chaney could go on a heater any given moment here. So we needed that Chaney Johnson yesterday.
So here's an example here against Alabama in Tuscaloosa. Chaney Johnson had 14 points.
Right.
Tahad had 13. Now Chad was technically considered a bench player at 15. So, if you want to swap him and Chris just for, semantics purposes there. I was clicking through a few games. Your average bench points had been somewhere around 10. And when Alabama was really heating up, you're looking at 20 plus from that bench, a lot of which came from Tahad and Chaney. And, kind of that sweet spot, if Dylan can get, 4 or 5 plus, that's very helpful. I think that's going to be your sweet number there. I mean, I think you really need to be looking at. I mean, 10 is not going to. I think 10's not. I think you need 15 plus. And I think if you're 20 plus from the bench, you're cooking somebody, or you were just in an absolute shootout. But when Auburn was playing its best basketball, that was the kind of production that they were getting, and it was coming to the bench. Like I just want to look over here at let's look at let's use Memphis as an example. Like some of these kind of early form games. Chaney Johnson 9. He had Ja'Kai getting some points. Actually, they didn't a ton of bench points out of. Actually, they didn't get a ton of bench points out of the guys really. Chris Moore 16 minutes 2. Chaney had 9, so I'll take that from Chaney. Dahad had 6, and then was when Pegues was playing in there. So yeah, I think that's going to be it. I think I want 15. I feel good if you can get 15 bench points. Todd, get your win the assist to turnover ratio, and then double doubles out of Janai, and then Chaney just more production.
Yeah, I think Chaney's got to average probably about 5 boards a game for Auburn to be in a dominating type of space, and he needs to average probably about 8 points. So like 8 and 5, I think is a solid game for now. If he goes for more than that, then so be it. But I don't think that you can win a lot of basketball games in March with Chaney Johnson scoring less than 8 points and having less than 5 boards because of how many minutes you want to be able to play him to keep guys like Janai and Dylan safe from both foul trouble and from a minutes restriction. Like you want to be able to use depth. So I think he needs to be effective in his minutes in that way. So 8 and 5 is where you want Chaney Johnson to kind of be averaging for this tournament in order for Auburn to make the run that they need.
Yeah, I mean that, and then of course, the biggest thorn in their side has been just the rebound deal. So I think something I'll be doing, looking at some of these games, is seeing how big are their bigs, how good is this team at rebounding.
Yeah, right, and that's why I look at a team like Michigan State and say, okay, they could potentially be an issue. Michigan State's a good rebounding team. Michigan State's a good defensive team. They're, a top 40, adjusted efficiency team. They are the kind of team that Auburn can struggle with. When you look at their players, let me just go and take a look at their roster here for a second. What their size looks like on the interior.
I've actually got that pulled up. So, St. Mary's is a top rebounding team. A&M's at 3. We always knew A&M would be up there. So Michigan State's actually number 5 in rebounding. So that's a little scary because another scary one for every Auburn fan still in here. Yale is 13. So Florida 10, of course, Duke 9. So, teams that Auburn have struggled with all happen to also be really good rebounding teams. So, I mean, you're right. That could be that could be tough. And then Alabama's at 17. I mean, they lost to Alabama the second time, and Alabama was getting rebounds with Grant Nelson and Cliff that if Auburn had gotten it, it'd have just Alabama got a lot of second chance points off those in a buzzer beater game, giving the second chance points. Tennessee at 31, rebounding team. That was lost Tennessee. I think rebounding was necessarily the problem there, but still, Zakai Ziegler getting a rebound. That guy should never touch a rebound. That's just that infuriated me. But Auburn is not in the top 50.
I was more upset about the 3-point block on Denver.
Oh man! That hurt me.
Yeah,
you got a 5'9" guy packing you like that. Now he did get up in the air. Props to him. Auburn is 74th in rebounding right now, so that's not good. Louisville's at 62. And then let me see if Creighton is in here at all too. So that'll be. I don't see them in the top 50. So, I mean that has been a pretty good correlation here. Looking at that, the teams that have beaten Auburn and or given them a hard time are all good and or elite rebounding teams.
Yep.
Creighton is 86. So Creighton is not a rebounding team. So you might want to see Creighton pull that upset. Might be better for Auburn. So, I mean, I think that's going to be the $1 million question there. If you're playing Michigan State, that's right under A&M for the best Power 5 rebounding team. I mean, that could actually be a scary part of that matchup. And for whatever reason,
that's the one team, Texas A&M and Michigan State. Like, I feel like every other team that is in this region Auburn matches up well with. Now, whether they beat them or not is a different story. As far as the matchup is concerned, I think Auburn matches up well with everybody except Texas A&M and Michigan State. Doesn't mean that both of those teams will beat Auburn. They're just the teams that, when you look at how they're composed, have the type of stuff that Auburn struggles with.
Yeah, because Alabama, when they beat Auburn, out rebounded 41-33. That's not going to be a winning formula for you. And I don't have the numbers in front of me. I'm trying to pull a few up here live on the fly. But what did Tennessee do to Auburn yesterday as far as rebounding goes?
They won the
35-27.
Yeah.
So it seems to be that. Let me see about Ole Miss. It seems to me that this may be just the biggest statistical factor to circle here is if Auburn's going to lose the rebounding battle, and especially it just sucks. It seems like every time these teams are getting second chance points and Auburn just isn't. Or Auburn will get fouled going up for a second chance point, and of course there you go to Janai missing or Dylan missing like key free throws. So even though they got the second chance at the free throw line, they didn't capitalize on it. Ole Miss and Auburn, it was 28-38. Auburn out rebounded them by 10. So there you go. We know A&M cooked them on the rebounding. So yeah, I mean, that's going to be it. I mean, elite rebounding teams is going to be a thing this team struggles with. And when Auburn played Tennessee the first time, 37-42. So Auburn out rebounded Tennessee there, close, but they won. So
yeah, the boards was the difference between those two games, in my opinion. Well, the boards and the free throw line were the difference. But I talked about this in the preview versus Tennessee, that Tennessee in every statistical category except for rebounds and turnovers did better than Auburn. And Auburn didn't really do well in a lot of stuff. Like they shot the three ball poorly. They were only 29% this time versus Tennessee. They were like 15% the first time. They had a worse field goal percentage, worse free throw percentage. But they rebounded better in that game than Tennessee did, and then they had less turnovers. Now, they did the same thing in this game where they had less turnovers, but they didn't get in on the boards, and the differential in the free throw shooting was too great, right? Tennessee was 93%, Auburn was 59%, right? You can't that can't be the way, right? You can't lose on the boards and then shoot a very poor free throw percentage when you're going to go less times than the other team. So that was to me the difference in that game.
Yeah, Auburn was actually, strangely enough, I remember this differently, but Auburn did out rebound Duke when they played Duke there, which, kind of all things considered is surprising. But I think that's something Cooper Flagg's not great at, right? I think Janai's got way more rebounds than he does.
Yeah, I mean, Cooper Flagg's a good rebounder, not great. And now Duke, the difference between that Duke game for me, again, was the free throw disparity, just in the number of times that they went to the free throw line. And then that first half explosion for the 6 threes for the one guy. Like, I think that those are the two things that really contributed to Duke being able to get that win versus Auburn. But again, you have to remember, and this is not the, shade a particular guy thing. The rotation still included JP McGeese at that point in the season. So Auburn's a slightly different team in the way that they attack teams now than they were at that point in the season as well. But, Tahad Pettiford played a good game, was in foul trouble in that game. So it made it where Auburn was a little bit, where it was not like they were really just trying to figure out the point guard spot. Coming off of that tournament in Maui, because they realized, okay, Tahad's a big game guy. We need to try to get him some more minutes. And they just really hadn't figured that rotation out in a real way yet. I think now that Auburn has started to move Chad over to play a little bit more of the point guard / offense initiator role, and they're going to bring Tahad a little bit more off the ball, you're going to see a resurgence of Tahad as a scorer too. So we'll see.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I think they got it. We talked about this extensively yesterday. You got to change some things up what they've done. Like I said, I think the rebounding had been more of a problem lately. With Dylan and Janai both out there, there's no excuse for them not to be getting the ball. They shouldn't be getting. I mean, guys, Cliff has been incredibly inconsistent. Grant Nelson, Janai had been just manhandling him the previous 2 years. And I think that was just a pent-up anger thing. There's no reason they should have gotten beat down there by Alabama too. I think it was just kind of an effort and emotion deal. I think this team should have some fire under him, because I just remember there was a 3 that Janai shot. I can't remember if it was against Ole Miss or Tennessee. Missed it, and it bounced. If he had crashed the board, it would have bounced right to him. He could have got his own rebound, but he's kind of stood there and watched it. I'm just kind of sitting there. I'm like, then get after it. Then I'm watching Florida just dismantle Alabama last night, which was awesome. And I'm just seeing there, like a ball goes up, and I mean, it was like moth to a flame, except like moths on meth. I mean, Florida guys were crashing that thing like crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm just very envious. Like, man, like, why is Auburn like, why when the ball's up in the air and it hits the rim, everybody's feet's just planted. Like all 5 of those guys should have feet moving. Either they're jumping or they're crashing. And I just don't see that enough. And I don't know what it is in the coaching or what it is. I'm not going to be couch coach over here, but that cannot be a reason they lose some games here. So hopefully that's one of those things where it's just effort and knowing everything's on the line. And Mike went viral with that quote about Dylan, basically like, this is the last game, no more team meals, no more team, like this is it. A lot of seniors on this deal. I mean, this is the definition of last dance for a lot of these guys. And and for the fans out there, like, a lot of these guys are special. I mean, you could not design a better Auburn man in a lab than Dylan Cardwell. I mean, just guys like Miles, even though they're new, fun to watch. I mean, Denver's been a just great addition. That's been awesome to watch these few years too. And then of course, Janai, like I was kind of getting a little sad. I mean, this would be some of the last time when he's just cutting through guys, just playing, as Bruce kind of said, old school basketball with footwork, and just seeing him get under the rim and just slipping past guys and just laying it in. Like, man, I'm gonna miss seeing this. Like, we're taking this for granted. We had to watch this guy just play elite basketball for 3 years, and like it's coming to an end here. So at the most, we have 3 more weeks to see it. So, and that's, best case scenario. So cherish every single game. I know I am. It's going to get kind of sad and emotional to see like legends leave. And I mean, these guys are legends in their own respect. And I say guys plural because there's a lot of them. And, we just got to cherish it and hope that the fire's under them, because they actually, unlike other years in the past, this team has the ability to make that run.
They absolutely do.
There's no one
there's not the significant flaw that Auburn has. Again, I don't think there's teams that exploit that until you get to the Sweet 16/Elite 8. So,
I mean, there's matchup issues, and I mean, there's teams that you look at it and you can unbiasedly say, like, they could definitely they can beat Auburn. Obviously, some of them have, but you also know, hey, if Auburn plays their like best, there's no reason they can't beat said team because they've played all these teams already. In years past, you look at it and go, I mean, it would take a miracle. It'd be a real upset. Like, you're kind of boxing above your weight class here. But I mean, this isn't the case for Auburn. I mean, there are unfavorable matchups and tough games, but like, this is one of those years that they really are poised to make a run. And like I said, I mean, a Final Four would be great. I mean, if you somehow make a championship, that'd be incredible. But that may be a tough order. Like I said, I don't know if I'm personally going to have Auburn winning my main bracket. Part of that's emotional hedging. So I'd rather lose a bracket than Auburn win it all. So that's good strategy for those out there, but they have the ability. They're a number 1 overall seed for a reason. And just if they start firing on all cylinders, I will say this very confidently. If they're firing all cylinders, no one's beating them. It's just a matter of can they and will they? Yeah.
Yeah. I still say if they're firing on all cylinders and Florida's not, yes. But if Florida's, somebody literally just asked this in the chat, if you get the best game possible from Florida and the best game possible from Auburn, who wins? I'm picking Florida in that. I just think that Florida, like, I don't see a significant flaw in Florida. Not a significant one.
I think what it is as much hate to say this and why I agree with you there is if it is an all cylinders game, Florida's got the better guards. And what do they say about marching guards? I mean, Tahad and Denver, great, but they're also not true point guards. And that's where I think it really stings that
Walter
you missed.
Clayton absolutely is.
Yeah. And that's what I think. And for Auburn, I mean, and I think we're all on the same page. If you had told us that JP Pegues is like so much of a misavow that he's playing walk-on minutes.
Yeah. You couldn't convince me that at the beginning of the season that was going to be the case. I was definitely in the camp of, Auburn won the offseason. They finally got a guard that can shoot a decent percentage. He can go to this free throw line, step up and make it. He's a playmaker, all of the things that you want, and it just never materialized for him. And I don't even have a reason or an explanation as to how that's possible, because he's played big games in his career and he's got the size to be able to do it. He's got all of the tangible aspects that you would want, and it never happened for him.
Yeah, and I mean, but the fact that that happened, I still made a number one overall seed is just like insane. It really just kind of gets, and like I said, I try not to have this mindset, but you almost think like, man, if if you got somebody else, or he had panned out, or Trey had stayed, like what could have been. And I hate,
Right.
if Auburn doesn't make it all the way, we're probably going to be asking ourselves that, and just I'm emotionally preparing for it now, but I'm also not trying to take anything for granted. It's historic, and if you make it to Atlanta, you hang your hat on it, and then if you make it to San Antonio, no matter what happens there, you're shooting fireworks.
Yeah.
That's my stance on it. They've got the ability to do it, and if they have just a awesome game of Florida in the Final Four, that'd be great. I mean, obviously, if you somehow win that would be incredible, but I'm not going to be that person. And a lot of people have been tweeting this, the old head basketball fans, and it's so real. We're just like, not in a very short past, or we were very much like, oh, it would just be so cool to make the tournament. Like, what
Right.
if? Like in 2009, we were excited, like thrilled to make the NIT. So this is like, we're number one overall seed. Like that's like throw a parade. Like we just got to like take a breath and just appreciate how old it is. It's not like a fluke thing either. Like Auburn has been consistently hitting the tournament at a high clip. And even the year the tournament got canceled, Auburn probably should have still even been a 2 seed that year. So like, it's just the floor. Bruce Pearl has elevated the floor of this program to national elite in like record setting time. And that's just like, if you think about it, your head should still be spinning. And I'm just trying to, I encourage everybody out there. So let's just like take a breath and just like take that all in, for just like how awesome it is that we have a live show right now celebrating Auburn right out of the gate being the number one overall seed.
Yeah.
And having the opportunity to play within driving distance in Lexington, and then like super close proximity, a central home game in Atlanta. And one thing too, and I don't know if this will be a major factor or not, I don't know if it's been talked about yet, but Auburn's going to be playing in 2 arenas they've already played in this season. I don't know if that matters much. 2 arenas they've won in, because they beat Ohio State.
Arenas that they have admitted that they like to shoot in. Like they
soft rims.
They like shooting in both of those arenas. So you could see a renaissance of the 3-point proficiency for Auburn in these games. And I am definitely hoping to see that. All right, we need to get out of here. We've been on here for 2 hours now talking a little bit about this, and there's so much more because we need to see who Auburn is going to actually be playing. That game has yet to be decided yet, but we'll be back talking a little bit more about that actual breakdown. I'm probably going to get some more SEC-wide conversations going with some of my guys from around the conference. So we'll talk about kind of how the SEC fares in this and another live stream. Any final words before we get out of here, Alex?
Yeah, I think we covered it pretty strong. Like I said, I mean, excited and looking forward to the trip up to Lexington. My last PSA for anybody listening, if you have the means, you have the PTO or whatever, travel as much as you can. If you can make Lexington, do it. If you can make Atlanta, do it. And if you can make both, do it. You don't get a lot of opportunities to do it. This is going to be the best draw they're probably ever going to get from a geographical standpoint. I mean, it's the number one overall seed. This stuff doesn't happen. So I'm making the trip, and just try to get up there. Cause I mean, any little bit of home court advantage will be massive for this team, especially in Atlanta, if they can get that far. And to help guarantee to get that far, let's travel and be loud for them.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. All right, we're out of here. If you haven't already liked the video, please do that before you get out of here. You can share the content with somebody. You can say, man, listen to these idiots. They don't know what they're talking about. I am completely fine with that being a part of the share. And go ahead and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Green Name Gang, y'all know I'm coming with the content between now and Thursday. I got y'all. So y'all make sure y'all stay tapped in. I'm out of here until the next time. And as always, War Eagle.
War damn.